Tonight on the Black Channel. What do you do when you have a black population that refuses to leave from where they are? The Democrats use the subtle strategy of buffer classes, but the Republicans are relying on good old-fashioned brute force. The Black Channel is live. Unapologetic, unadulterated, and absolutely uncompromising. Greetings, brothers and sisters from around the world, and welcome back to the home, the haven, the stronghold, and the everlasting super fortress of intelligent black thought. We are the Black Media, and this is the Black Channel. And I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the voice of Black America, the Black Authority, broadcasting to you live from the only historically black college university of higher education and learning in the cosmos. You are, of course, welcome to join us. And join us you shall, because on tonight's program, to make sure that you understand exactly the situation that you're in here, and once again, tonight's program, you all heard me do it last night. Just letting you know we're back on you one more time, because tonight's program is going to be yet another deep dive and super heavy. So prepare yourselves as we peel back the layers on the onion. And so you get the 720 degrees of analysis you receive absolutely nowhere else. So what do you do when you're looking at a future that you no longer control? If the population numbers are not on your side, and if demographics are not on your side, and if the folk you've been trying to hold down have gotten smart to the way you do things, and the old tricks are no longer going to work, well, what do you do? What do you do? The word takeover popping up over and over again, and it's only happening where black people are. Now, if you'll all remember, well over a decade ago, when this channel was a lot smaller than it is today, when we were just beginning, we did a program about a little place called Benton Harbor. We did a story about a little place called Benton Harbor in Michigan, which basically is where Whirlpool is, and how they conspired together with the governor. It was passed under Democrats. The Democrats passed it into law, and then the Republican governor comes along and starts using it. So you have this little place, Benton Harbor, which was taken over by the state of Michigan because democracy wasn't working. You see, if democracy's not giving you the results you want, well, to hell with democracy. And let's be very, very clear. It's the right-wingers who always talk about the Constitution and rule of law and the law of the land. Those were the ones who stood up first and said, yeah, screw that law of the land. Just like Dick Cheney. Well, the Constitution isn't a suicide pact. Well. So I'm going to take you through a couple of examples here. We're going to go through these really, really quick before we get to the main course here tonight. So in case in point here, you can see here, CNN article from Mississippi just a couple of weeks ago here. Proposed takeover has sparked a battle for one of America's blackest big cities. You start seeing this motif come up over and over again. A black city, a major black city, a large black city, over and over and over again. It's never some white suburb. Nobody's talking about taking over East Palestine. Nobody's talking about taking them over. Nothing can happen where white folk are this so bad. Let's get rid of your democratic rights here. We need somebody else to take it over. I'm going to go through this article really quickly for you here. Republican state lawmakers are pushing a takeover of the city of Jackson and disenfranchising local voters, declared Danielle Holmes, a local activist. They're banking us to be quiet. They're banking on us to back down. A proposal in the Mississippi legislature to reshape Jackson's criminal justice system has erupted into a high-stakes battle between the Republican-dominated state government and the blackest big city in the U.S. over some of the most incendiary flashpoints of American politics, voting rights, public safety, and race. Now, remember, the big story out of Jackson, Mississippi was about the water system. You're talking about the state capitol, and the big story out of Jackson, Mississippi was about the water system, remember? Deion Sanders was the coach there, and everybody was talking about the water system. The water system's messed up, the water system. The state wants to step in, but they don't want to do anything about the water system. No, they're not stepping in to say, okay, we need to take over this water system and get this whole thing revamped. They're not saying that. They're saying something else. They're saying something else. So just understand what the priority is. It's like, yeah, we've already messed up your water system for you. Now we're closing in for the kill. It goes on to say that the fight comes at a time when the legislature is debating other bills that would also narrow the city's authority, including over its broken water system. So you see, nothing about funding and taking care of the water system in Jackson. No, don't need to do that. We want to get through a whole bunch of other stuff, and oh yeah, we want to take over the water system. Now you know what that means, right? Narrowing the city's authority, including over its water system. So the state will want to come in, but we all know how this works. The state will want to come in, and they're probably going to want to sell off the water department to a private corporation, a white corporation. We've seen this happen before. The goal, we'll sell it off to a white corporation, probably one of their friends, Brett Favre maybe, who knows. And then they'll sit up here and say, okay, we're going to go ahead and sell it to some white folk. And then they'll run it. Some of our white friends, they'll run it. So just understand, when you hear them coming in, well, this is going to be the helping hand. No, this is not going to be a helping hand. It's going to be a fist to the back of your head. It also goes on to say, and around the country, other Republican-controlled state legislatures are also clashing with big city leaders over power struggles and purse strings. The Mississippi Criminal Justice Bill, which passed the State House of Representatives earlier this month, would create a new, separate court system in a district that includes Jackson's downtown and a third of its residents. Judges and prosecutors in the district would be appointed by state government officials, encroaching on the power of locally elected judges to hear some cases. Now, keep that in mind also. So not only are they saying we want to take over, but the new government in the areas we take over will not be elected. It will be selected by us, the white supremacist lawmakers in the state capitol. We're going to take over these black areas. We're going to install a new government, but that government will not be elected. No. That's too good for you. No, we, the white supremacist lawmakers, we will be choosing who is in charge. Because you see, we don't want another Atlanta, Georgia to happen. The whole plan in Atlanta, Georgia was that once it becomes majority black, it was going to just wither on the vine and die. Because black folk allegedly can't run anything. And that isn't what happened. It became one of the biggest, richest cities in America. That was when the white folks said, oh, hell no, we got to stop flooding out the city. We got to do a 180 and turn back around. It's not going to sink. Same thing in Philadelphia. Philadelphia gets a bad rap. And I will be one of the first people to let you know that, by the way, I'm one of the people who's a very harsh critic about Philadelphia, always have been. But let's also be very clear. Philadelphia was another city that was majority black, that is, black people the largest racial group there. They were not 51% of the population, but largest racial group, definitely. And it was supposed to crumble and collapse too, but that didn't happen. So they've been sitting on the sidelines, and cynically they thought, well, if we pull the money out and everything else, don't worry, the places will collapse. Yeah, they entered some hard times, but they didn't collapse. And in the case of Atlanta, it actually turned around. So what they realized is this could turn into a worst case nightmare. You've been assuming that black folk wouldn't be able to turn things around, and they figured out a way to do it when they were left alone by themselves. You see, white supremacy has the racist belief that black folk can't take care of their own business. Of course, it's not true, but the only reason it can't get done is when white folk are behind the scenes pulling the strings to make sure it's sabotaged. When they clear out altogether, black folks start getting things done. Black folks start getting things done. So they've been making a cynical calculation that it wouldn't help and it wouldn't happen, and sure enough, it did. Now, it goes on to say here that a modified version of the bill stripped some of its most controversial provisions past a state Senate committee Thursday, although they could be added back as the two legislative houses come to an agreement. Both versions of the legislation would greatly expand the jurisdiction of the Capitol Police, a state government-controlled police force that has been criticized by local leaders for aggressive tactics and multiple shootings by officers. So, yeah, you think you're going to defund the police? Well, don't worry. We'll just take over the city, and we won't don't worry about your local police. We'll bring in our police. Some good old boys from Biloxi or southern Louisiana. We'll come to that in a few moments here. Or from southern Louisiana. We'll come to that in a few moments. It goes on to say here that both versions of the legislation, taken together, the changes in the House bill would put white conservative state officials in control of much of the criminal justice system across a significant swath of Jackson. That prospect has mobilized opposition in a city where more than 8 in 10 residents are black. Quote, "It is taking us back in time, and it puts us on the wrong side of history," Jackson Mayor Chokwe Lumumba said in an interview. "It's colonization. It's apartheid. It's the worst of what Mississippi can be." Now, let me tell you all something. When you go into the state of Mississippi on Interstate 20, when you cross over to in the Mississippi on Interstate 20, whether you're coming from the west or the east, whether you're coming from Alabama into Mississippi, or whether you're coming from Louisiana into Mississippi, you see that sign on the side of this freeway that says, "Welcome to Mississippi, the birthplace of America's music." For those of you who've seen my documentary Race War, I took footage of that sign in Mississippi. So that's what it says when you come into the state of Mississippi. Their welcome sign in the state of Mississippi is not Sweet Home Alabama, like they got in Alabama. It says, "Welcome to the birthplace of America's music." Who created America's music? What they are priding themselves on their sign when you come into the state of Mississippi, and who built it. Now that's what it says on their welcome sign when you come into the state of Mississippi. So let's be very, very clear about who built it. I didn't even get to the cotton, did I? Didn't say anything about the cotton. Didn't say anything about the agriculture. The state of Mississippi concedes it on that sign to this day. Good thing I took footage of it. They might go and remove the sign now. Ooh, hell, we didn't know we put it up there. Go take it down, quick. It goes on to say here, the GOP lawmakers pushing the bill say it's needed to address huge court backlogs. Oh, so they're just here to help. And stem violence that spiked in the city in recent years. Jackson reached a record number of homicides in 2021 with one of the highest murder rates in the U.S., although the number fell last year. Pandemic, anybody? Quote, "The bill is totally racially neutral," its sponsor, Representative Trey Lamar, told CNN this month. "I hate that the other side used race as much as they did." because using their eyes and ears and math is wrong. If you all agree with what you're hearing here on tonight's program, give me the thumbs up in the chat room and hit the likes button. It's over 3,000 people watching here live. Unless we got some Mississippi lawmakers in here, in which case you are allowed to sit this one out. But if you like what you're hearing, hit the likes button for me. It's over 3,000 people. Going to be more before we're done. Cliff Johnson, a University of Mississippi law professor and the director of the university's MacArthur Justice Center, said the House version of the bill stood out for its audacity. Quote, "You'd have a police department and judges and prosecutors who aren't accountable to local voters, all of whom are appointed by white officials in a city that's 82% black," he said. The bill, he added, is, quote, "the most radical piece of legislation I've seen in 30 years of practicing law in Mississippi." You'll all remember I warned you all a decade ago. I warned you all when Trayvon Martin was killed. I warned black people over a decade ago. I said, you know what? We are entering the darkest time in American history for black people, because black people have been telling themselves that since Michael Jordan got a shoe deal, and since Oprah Winfrey got a TV deal, and since some other black folks got an NFL deal, that we were out of the woods, that racism and white supremacy was dead and gone, and that they had lulled us to sleep with tennis shoes and cell phones and BET, and that white supremacy was behind the scenes, building itself up bigger and stronger than ever, and that we were entering the most perilous time in American history for black people. Things that you thought you would never see again, things you thought you would only read in the history book, for as long as they keep putting it in the history books, that you would never see it again. And here it is today. But they don't give you any central figures to focus on. There isn't a Lincoln Rockwell or a Bull Connor looking to be the rock stars of white supremacy today, except for a couple of cases. But in the local legislatures, that's not what they're doing. I warned black people. I also said that if white supremacy does not keep its foot on black people's necks, black people will just go back to sleep again. Black people will just go back to sleep again. Giving Barack Obama a pass for being the black face of white supremacy had perilous consequences. And my concern was that the white supremacists would just go a little bit easier and a little bit quieter, and you wouldn't be able to see them as much, and black folk would go back to sleep. Quite to the contrary, they've gotten desperate and they're putting the foot to the pedal to the metal. That's what they're doing now. They're putting the pedal to the metal. So they can't be subtle anymore. They just got to do like Woody Hayes, 5 yards in a cloud of dust. We're just going to smash our way through this thing. Yes, it's going to be out in the open. It's going to be big and ugly because we don't have any other options. You won't have any other options. The story goes on to say here, one of the few things that state and local leaders in Jackson agree on is that the city is facing steep challenges. Now, that's something to keep in mind here. If people are acknowledging that the state is entering steep challenges, from the breakdown in water infrastructure to the spike in murders to a dramatic drop in population that sapped the city's tax base. As white residents moved out to the suburbs, Jackson's population fell nearly 25% from 1990 to today. Remember, white flight? These folks all this time and what they've been doing, that's been the strategy the whole time, is that when the place gets too black, what we will do is we will scuttle the ship. That's what we'll do. We'll scuttle the ship. Once black folk get too much, we'll take our white dollars away, and that is intended literally to economically lynch and execute black people. That's what it's meant to do. That's the strategy they've been using. Their strategy has been to economically lynch us. So every time we get into a population majority, then they start saying, okay, pull the money. We're going to artificially impoverish it. We'll just make up new enclaves in the suburbs. We'll make up new enclaves in the suburbs. So I just want you to see this is a strategy that's been going on the whole time. White flight is not simply about white populations. It's about strangling you economically. That's the whole point. It's about strangling you economically. It's not accidental. Now it says here, as white residents moved out to the suburbs, Jackson's population fell nearly 25% from 1990 to today. At the same time, the city went from about 56% black back in 1990 to about 83% black now, the highest percentage of any major city in the U.S. Keep those words in mind. The highest percentage of any major city in the U.S. I keep pointing out these phrases because you will hear them again, just not in Jackson. In 2017, state legislatures aimed to help support the city created the Capital Complex Improvement District to fund street repairs and infrastructure projects in the neighborhoods surrounding the state capitol, where government office buildings sit near empty storefronts. Last year, now y'all remember, the state capital of every state in the union, that's usually going to be the most banging, poppin'est place in the state. Because businesses, lobbyists, corporations, they want to be near the legislature. So it doesn't matter what state you're talking about, whether it's Austin, Texas, Phoenix, Arizona, Tallahassee, Florida, my home state, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Atlanta, Georgia. The state capital is always popping in every state because businesses and corporations want to be near the legislature. So if you have a legislature where businesses ain't really trying to get there, that's not accidental. That's engineered. They're like, yeah, you could come here, but it's a black city right now, and we haven't figured out how to strangle it, because the goal of white supremacy is always to figure out how to thread the needle of allowing prosperity, the reign of prosperity, and I'm talking about reign, R-A-I-N, the reign of prosperity to fall only on white people. And you can have a white person and a black person standing side by side. The goal is to make sure that the reign of prosperity only falls on the white folk and somehow misses the black people, even if the black folk are standing right next to them. Understand this for the remainder of your days. The goal of white supremacy is to engineer a system, either overtly or covertly, that allows prosperity to reign only on the white citizens, even though there are black people standing right next to them, is to figure out some way to get the rain to only fall on the white folk. And the black people will die of drought and dehydration. So when you wonder about all these complex laws and all these crazy schemes and all these crazy politicians and crazy statements and weird freeway designs and weird school districts and weird business districts and all these bizarre things that seem to go on, that it's just, sometimes it's really simple and sometimes it's complicated as hell and you can't figure it out, it's because somebody sat back and said, okay, we better make this freeway curve this way and curve back that way so we can get rid of some of these black folk. We got to set up the economic policy so it swings this way but swings back that way but then goes straight over here so we can make sure we freeze black folk out. And then we got to develop this area over here and that one over there, but not that one down there, and not this area over here, and not that one back there, because, you know, we can keep it confined to where we are. It is not accidental, it is engineered. And every one of you who lives in the state capital anywhere in this country, you know damn well your state capital is supposed to be the biggest, is usually going to be the biggest, most populous economy in your state. It's never struggling. But you get to Jackson, Mississippi, and it's struggling. It goes on to say here that last year, with bipartisan support, the legislature added funds for policing in that district with an expansion of the state capitol police. Formerly a sleepy department patrolling state buildings, the force has significantly increased in officers since the middle of last year, and its shiny SUVs and a ubiquitous presence downtown. Now, Republican leaders say more changes are needed, pointing to a significant backlog of criminal cases in the county courts, which leaves some defendants waiting months or longer for trials. So they want to hurry up and fly you through that court system. It's taking too long to railroad you. The House version of the controversial bill, known as HB 1020, would expand the Capitol Complex District to cover about a third of Jackson's population and create a new judicial district with state government-appointed judges who could hear cases in the district. The judges would be appointed by the state Supreme Court Justice, and prosecutors would be appointed by the state Attorney General, both of whom are conservative, white, elected officials. The newly expanded district would stretch from the museums and Capitol building downtown to the northeast city limits of Jackson, encompassing much of the city's business district, as well as key institutions such as Jackson State University, encompassing much of the city's business district, as well as key institutions such as Jackson State University and the University of Mississippi Medical Center. According to CNN's analysis of U.S. Census data and the bill text, about 55% of people living in the district are black, compared with 83% of Jackson as a whole. The district includes most of the densest white neighborhoods in the city, which are also some of Jackson's most affluent areas. The proposed district, quote, looks like a redlining map from the 60s, Johnson said, referring to the decades-old discriminatory practice of denying loans in minority neighborhoods. Lamar, the bill's sponsor, has framed the measure as a way to help Jackson by increasing security and addressing the court backlog. Quote, there are too few law enforcement officers, too few prosecutors, too few public defenders, and too few judges to effectively administer justice. Lamar, who represents a rural community 2.5 hours north of Jackson, wrote in a recent op-ed. He lives 2.5 hours away from Jackson, Mississippi, and yet he is your local expert on Jackson, Mississippi. But local leaders argue that the legislature should increase the number of judges who are elected locally in Jackson's Hinds County, not bring in appointed judges. But of course, that would get in the way of the gerrymandering, don't you understand? So it would get in the way of that. So we're not allowed to do that. That would not be allowed for you here. Now, what I want to show you all, I want to go ahead and just show this to you here. I want to show this to you right quick so you can get a good idea of exactly what they're talking about in the article. So you can see this. I want you all to see this with your own two eyes. I want you to see this with your own two eyes. You can see on here side by side the percentage of the population that is white by census block group and the percentage of the population that is black by census block group. So you can see here what their little plan would do. You can see where it is. In black there, you can see where the new district would be. And you can see what they got going on. So you can see how that works. You can see how it would work now. And this is Representative Trey Lamar. This is him looking like an older version of Richard Spencer. And who in the hell dressed this dude? Who in the hell told him that was... All right. He's committing a criminal offense with just the print on that attire. That alone is a criminal offense. We're going to take instructions from him I think not. I think that'd be a horrible idea. Now, it goes on to say here that the version of the bill approved by the Senate Committee on Tuesday responds to some of that criticism by dropping the expansion of the Capitol Complex District and the new court system. Instead, it would add 5 new temporary judges in Hinds County, appointed by the state Supreme Court Justice. So you all know what that means. They would not be temporary. So you know what that means. They wouldn't be temporary. It goes on to say those judges would be replaced by a single new locally elected judge starting in 2027. But the amended bill would expand the Capitol Police jurisdiction citywide instead of just in the Capital District. Any dispute over policing between the state-run department and the city-run Jackson Police Department would be resolved in favor of the state, according to the bill. So, folks, they're just like, yeah, damn democracy. We don't need that. We don't need democracy anymore. Yeah, democracy ain't working. Democracy ain't working. Yeah, the right-wingers, the Republicans, yeah, so much for democracy. Yeah, democracy ain't working. If we're not winning, it ain't working. So, yeah, damn democracy. Big government. Hey, aren't these supposed to be the anti-big government guys? Aren't these supposed to be the guys who are against big government? Yeah, they don't like big government when the big government is challenging their white privilege. They love big government when it's time to enforce white supremacy. Now, it goes on to say here, assuming the amended bill passes the full Senate, the 2 legislative houses would have to iron out the differences in the conference committee in the coming weeks. A coalition of activists and faith leaders have organized against the bill, holding rallies on the Capitol steps and in churches around the city, and are planning to fight it out in court if it becomes law. Now, this is the Republican way of taking things over. The Democrats are using buffer classes, Eric Adams and Gavin Newsom and others. They're using the buffer class strategy. The Republicans are like, yeah, damn a buffer class. We just bashing in the front doors. We're just bashing in the front doors now. That's what we're doing. Now, you'd figure in Mississippi that they'd be concerned about a few other things, like inmates dying in the prisons. So if you want to take something over, why is it that you are not concerned to be damned about what's going on in those prisons in Mississippi? Didn't see the legislature convene to say, hey, we got to have an emergency meeting and an emergency powwow about what's happening in the prisons in Mississippi. We never heard anything about that. That never happened. Hell, you had to have Jay-Z and friends come down there and file lawsuits about it. Because, of course, Biden wasn't going to do a damn thing. You had to have black folk get mobilized about that. But the state of Mississippi at Parchman, why, they were letting folk drop like flies. Never stepped in to do a damn thing. Haven't stepped in today. So it's only because black folk jumped up and said something and did something, but the state of Mississippi, well, they don't see a need to take over the prison system. No need to do that. No need to do that at all. Now, what I want to do here, I'm going to go down to this article because there's something I want you to read. I want you to read here. And of course, this would be Mississippi. Now, this is back in January, a couple months ago. But of course, this is Mississippi. So, what they say in the lawsuit here is they talk about how both the lawsuits were, they decided to dismiss them. And it talks about, we're pleased that Parchman has started to address the cruel and inhumane prison conditions after the Department of Justice's investigation, But we aren't satisfied with short-term improvements. Mario Mims, who goes by the stage name Yo Gotti, said in a statement Monday, the Mississippi Department of Corrections has neglected these torturous living conditions for decades. So we will continue to hold them accountable and ensure they commit to creating long-lasting change that safely protects their incarcerated population. Now, once again, folks, this what happened when your so-called celebrity class actually jumps up and starts to energize a judicial class. When you actually have a legal class of citizens, a legal class of people who get up and do something, it's amazing how things start to change. You see, that's what other folk have, is ready legal representation. The NAACP does not do that. Hasn't done that in decades. But by the way, I just want to remind you, when they start putting some of that entertainment money into something substantive, isn't it amazing how quickly things start to move when folks realize, oh, they're going to have to go up against your economy. Now they're going to have to fight your economy, that you're properly funding your judicial class. Now the folks start backing down. It goes on to say here that one lawsuit that was filed in January 2020 and the other was filed a month later. The two were eventually merged. The second suit said Parchman was a violent, rat-infested place where inmates lived in, quote, abhorrent conditions, and their medical needs were routinely ignored. Next paragraph. Burl Cain, a former Louisiana prison warden, became commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Corrections in May 2020 and vowed to improve conditions at Parchman. When I saw that name, I said, Burl Cain? Burl Cain? Angola? Really? Is he even going to have to change the color of the drapes in his office in Mississippi? Y'all went to Angola to get the warden? Really? Really? Because of all the places you could have gone, when I saw that name, Burl Cain, really? Are you serious? Burl Cain. Yeah, because Mississippi wants to clean up his reputation, don't you know? Yeah, Mississippi wants to clean. Can't you all tell that Mississippi is now very serious about fixing their prison system? Can't you tell? Can't you tell? Yeah, they brought Burl Cain from Louisiana, of Angola fame. Can't you see Mississippi's trying to straighten up? Can't you see Mississippi is straightening up? Why, go ask all the happy inmates down there at Angola, the most treacherous penitentiary in America. Go ask them how it's going. So, just wanted you to know, in case any of you were worried about how things were going in Mississippi, don't worry, it's all looking up from here. Can't you tell things are on the way up? Can't you tell it's on the way up? So, yeah. Because we all know that Angola's not a violent prison. We all know that. We all know Angola is not internationally infamous. We all know that one. So, yeah, in the chat room, David Duke was not available. David Duke's itinerary was full right now, so he's trying to figure out how to become the prison warden in Tennessee. So, he doesn't have time to come to Mississippi right now. So, yeah. His calendar's full. His calendar's full. So, yeah, things are looking up in Mississippi. That's why they need to do a takeover of Jackson. They need to take over Jackson because, Mississippi is on the way up. Speaking of takeovers, everybody's favorite neo-Nazi, Ron DeSantis. Some folks did not understand years ago when I said that Ron DeSantis was a faux Latino. People did not understand what I meant. Do you all notice that everything Ron DeSantis does, you notice is not upsetting the Latinos in Florida? Did you notice that? The Latinos in Florida are not upset over what he does. He's been doing a bunch of things. He's been on a nonstop campaign, but you notice they're not upset over it. So what does that tell you? That tells you that what he's doing isn't affecting them. So when I gave that phrase that he's faux Latino, is that he identifies with the way that they see things and he knows not to really do anything that goes at them. So when the Latinos show up with the wet foot, dry foot thing, he's quiet. Haitians try to get into the state and he sends out the Coast Guard and brags about making sure he keeps them out. So just recognize what's going on there. So of course, DeSantis, not to be left out of the takeover fund. First Disney, well, they kind of had it coming, but now, a liberal arts college because there's too much diversity. They're too worried about diversity. Now I'm going to skip down the bit in the text here, and it says, Ron DeSantis plans to give this community of free thinkers a more conservative direction, saying the college's mission, quote, has been, I think, more on DEI, diversity, inclusion, equity, diversity, equity, inclusion, CRT, the gender ideology, rather than what a liberal arts education should be, according to the Sarasota Herald Tribune. This is the governor saying that the school is not focusing on what it should be. Interesting. I didn't know he was in charge of the school. Last time we saw Ron DeSantis around school-age girls, they were underage and he was sharing alcohol with them in the picture. So that's about the closest that Ron DeSantis has gotten to helping out the college students of Florida, was drinking alcohol with underage girls. And some people suspect doing more than drinking alcohol. Some folks suspect he was doing more than drinking alcohol with them. But that's his experience with college students and school-age girls in Florida. Don't believe me? Google it yourself. President Trump already posted about it, so go Google it yourselves if you don't believe me. He got real quiet after that. He doesn't want to talk about that photograph, by the way. Yeah, he's so innocent, he doesn't want to talk about that photograph. He doesn't say it's fake. By the way, he doesn't say it's fake. He doesn't say it's fake. He's never said it's fake, by the way. Just in case you were wondering, he's never accused anybody of saying that it was a fake picture. So, yeah, that's the kind of thing you want to keep in mind. That's the kind of thing you want to keep in mind. You want to remember that. Yeah, I'm sure we're all just misunderstanding it. Goes on to say here, in January, DeSantis replaced 6 of the 13 members of the college's board of trustees with conservative allies, including Christopher Rufo, who has fueled the fight against critical race theory, or as the rest of us call it, American history. As the rest of us call it, American history. The new board forced out the college's president and appointed DeSantis ally Richard Corcoran as interim president. Corcoran will serve on the job from February 27th to September 1st, 2024, and will earn a base salary of $699,000. People, this is not just a political power trip. This is a money grab. This is a money grab. So just understand what you're seeing there. This is what a money grab looks like. Ron DeSantis said, yeah, damn the nonsense. We're going to get it popping. I don't have to wait for the presidency. I'm not worried about that. I got you covered. I got you covered. So for those of you who might have been wondering here, like I say, he's taking care of the necessary things where education is concerned. He's taking care of that. And of course, he's doing a great job at it. Although, if I were you all, I wouldn't leave him around the college age students too long. Temptation might get the better of him. By the way, temptation might get the better of him. And in case it does, well, kind of interesting some of the sexual habits these folks had back when they were younger, by the way. Kind of interesting what that was. No wonder he's worried and concerned about grooming. Some people say that he's got experience in the field. Some people say he has extensive experience in the field. So some folks say if you're worried about grooming, Ron DeSantis is not here to do anything. He's not here to help you. He's here to help groom. So we don't know. We don't know. Then again, hey, I wonder if any of these young ladies wound up working at the governor's mansion. Yeah, I wonder if any of these young ladies somehow later turned up with a job working at the governor's mansion. At the governor's mansion or the governor's house, one or the other. Not really sure. Not really sure. It could happen. It could happen. So, from everywhere you look and everywhere you're looking at, these folks are getting serious about it. They're getting very, very serious about taking over. I want to go on longer, but I want to take a brief commercial, non-commercial break because of everything you've heard here so far, probably the most egregious one that we're witnessing in real time, probably outside of Jackson, Mississippi, but probably the most egregious one we're witnessing in real time is Houston and the takeover of Houston's school district. I've got some audio I want to play for you all that makes it very, very clear at the very highest levels. They are just saying, hey, look, we're pressing the advantage because elections don't work. Elections don't work. So we're just pushing the advantage while we still can because, yeah, these elections are not working out for us. So I was going to go ahead and get into that now, but you know what? I think I want to just take a very brief commercial, non-commercial break. And then when I come back, I can deal with this in depth because this is going to take a minute. This is going to take a minute to go over everything that's going to be necessary here. And I want to warn you in advance, it's going to upset you when you see how cavalier they are about it. When you see how cavalier they are about it, it's going to upset you. We'll be right back here in a moment. Before I do, I want to thank everyone, and I do mean everybody who has contributed to support tonight's program on PayPal, CashApp, Super Chat. Thank you very much for your support here. To my man Ogun, thank you very much. Tommy Felix, thank you very much as well. Mr. Cunningham and everybody in Super Chat, thank you very much for your support. We'll take a very brief commercial, non-commercial break. When we come back, Houston in the crosshairs in the most egregious manner you've ever seen. This is the Black Channel.
Vinarc Motion Pictures, your leading production house for handmade, high-end movies for us, by us. Grab your popcorn and drinks as Vinarc Motion Pictures presents you with binge-worthy visual entertainment that will leave you breathless. Stream all our titles for free. Visit our website to see Noxious, Noxious 2, Cold Case, and Valley of the Queens. Planned Obsolescence. These power-packed, innovative, and unforgettable flicks tick the boxes of all you could ever want in a movie. And coming soon to keep you at the edge of your seat. Await our most anticipated movie release. Escape from Velocity. Vinarc Motion Pictures. Broadcast excellence. Look for us on Tubi, Amazon, and wherever movies are streamed.
P23 lines can help you find your flow. Revolutionizing healthcare to self-care. P23, making a healthier you.
Order yours today to experience all the benefits of Ash Kickin' natural body butter. With skin so smooth and soft, you'll thank us for it. Shop Ash Kickin' online. That's ASHKICKIN.com.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. My name is Joe Jackson. I'm a foundational Black American, and I entered the field of IT with the goal of helping the family globally. The industry's been changing, and I've learned a lot. But how did we get here? How do we navigate issues we face in the workplace? How can we get our house in order? Read The Concept and Intricacies of Being Black in IT, now on Amazon, as well as the best-selling Guide to Being Black in IT. Go to beingblackInIT.com.
More Threads, a brand owned by a descendant of Black American freedmen, was created to uniquely address Black American history and contributions that have been intentionally hidden and suppressed. Use their apparel and more to learn and share the Black American history of Black inventions, heroes, towns, Black business districts, and more. Sign up and support not only a Black-owned business, but a movement at www.morethread.co.
Hi, this is Brenda Starr, creator of Poetry with a Purpose and author of the book Pressed But Not Crushed. Pressed But Not Crushed is an anthology of political poems that address current and historical issues in American descendants of slave population and African American population. The book describes slavery and its residuals, Jim Crow segregation, social depredation, and other relevant issues to American descendants of slaves and African Americans, including the current political climate that does not address our issues.
This is The Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. Very glad to be with you all here this evening. And folks, let me tell you what you're witnessing going on in Houston right now. And I've taken out time, as you know. Dallas, Texas is my home away from home. Houston, Black folk always come from Louisiana to Houston, so we're very familiar with Houston. And what they're doing in Houston right now, is egregious to a whole new level. The state has announced they want to step in and take over the school district. Just the Houston Independent School District. Not the school district everywhere, just Houston's. Now, I know what you're thinking because I can understand why you would think that. So what you're probably thinking is, well, Jason, if I can just tell you on the low, though, Jason, Houston is, a majority Black city, and, well, brother, if we can just be honest among family here, we can't really run these school districts right. So, the test scores is going to be bad, and everything going to be terrible there, and, they really ain't got a leg to stand on. Now, I know that's what you'd be thinking, but if you haven't actually looked at what Houston is doing, you wouldn't be aware of what's really going on. So I could sit up here and pontificate about it, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to an interview by KHOU Channel 11 in Houston. Going to take you to an interview there where they're talking to basically one of the chief architects behind this thing. And what his explanation when they interviewed him about what he's doing and why. And I want you to listen. Now, I'm going to do some skipping through it because you don't need to hear everything. But they interviewed him, and I want you to hear what he had to say when he was asked about the takeover. When he explains what is happening and why it's for.
$1 million question is...
Oh, yeah, by the way, you may be hearing audio in only one speaker. That's not me. That was them. So I'm not really sure. I guess they recorded it in mono. For those of you who don't do television production, sometimes you record in mono, or most of the time you record in mono. So it's like they got a raw audio feed. So if you're only hearing it in one speaker, that's not me, and that's not really anything I can do about it. That was them when they recorded the interview. So it may vacillate back and forth from when the interviewer talks and the, commissioner of education speaks.
With a takeover, what changes are coming to HISD?
It's important to frame this the way the law is structured. I'm not the one leading Houston ISD. What we are doing under this intervention is we are choosing 9 individuals who are Houstonians who will become the board of managers, and they will assume all the powers and duties of the elected school board. So it's essentially a shift in local control from the current locally elected board to an appointed board of 9. They then have all the duties and obligations to govern the school system like any governing body in the state of Texas.
So did you hear that? Once again, well, democracy isn't working. So we're going to step in and the state is going to step in and replace the elected school board. And me, the commissioner appointed by the governor, I'm going to step in and I'm going to select a new board to take over. So yeah, democracy isn't working. Your elected officials are not doing what we want. So we're going to remove them and we're going to appoint a new board that we will select because democracy is out of style.
They'll oversee the superintendent, they'll set strategic direction, they set budget. Their job as a team is to be focused like a laser on the needs of students above all else.
You're replacing the school board.
Yes, sir.
Are you replacing the superintendent?
So the law that sets this in place says I have to name a school board and I do appoint a superintendent. So we will be, when we take this action, because what we've announced today does not change anything today. What we've announced today is that we're going to start a process to solicit members of the community who would serve as individuals that would be on the board. And we think we'll be through with that process on or about June 1st. So that is when we would actually name the board and name the superintendent. In the meantime, the current superintendent, Superintendent House, who's a very student-focused, ethical leader, is a man of integrity, will continue to lead the district with my full support, with the full support of our conservators. So as of today, nothing changes. When we name the board, we'll also name a superintendent at that time.
Now, you notice he's doing a lot of talking. And you notice right now, I want you all to start registering his body language at the beginning of this interview. Take a look at the body language that he's exhibiting at the beginning of the interview. And then watch as it goes on.
The 9 new board members that you select, where are they coming from? What educational experience will they have?
So we went through a process similar to this in 2019 before the courts intervened and kept us on pause for the last 3 years. But we have a very transparent process. So you can go to our website today. We would encourage Houstonians that are interested in serving in this way to go and apply. And so we have an open application process. People provide their resumes, their background, and we go through a vetting process. What we're most interested in is people who start with a core belief that all children can learn and achieve at high levels, and that is possible as long as they're provided effective supports and that they can work together as a team.
So you hear he's saying he wants people from diverse backgrounds, but he doesn't mean diverse the way you think.
You're looking for people, anybody who's interested in serving education in Houston.
Yes, I would say not just anybody. Board service is not for the faint at heart. So these need to be people of integrity and character. They need to have their wits about them. They need to recognize that they exist not for the district to serve them, but they exist to serve the students and the teachers of Houston ISD, real servant leaders who understand their role as members of a governing body.
Okay, so the elected board members did not understand this? According to whom? The other thing is, do you all notice that the reporter actually knows why he's asking what he's asking. Did you notice he didn't say anything about education credentials? Did you notice that? He just said, well, they need to see things the right way, and they need to have the right perspective, and they need to have the right focus. But do you notice he didn't say anything about they need to have the right education credentials? Did you notice he didn't say that? Now, a lot of you might be assuming that if he's going to nominate a new board, Well, then education credentials, if you're going to appoint people, then of course you would be appointing people with a background in education, right? Because you're allegedly complaining about the education system there. And by the way, he's not actually complaining about the education system. You're going to hear some details here in a moment. They're going to show just how devious this is. But by the way, you notice he hasn't said a word yet about academic or education credentials. So the reporter's going to come back to this in a moment. So this brother did a very good job interviewing here. He's going to come back to this in a moment, but you notice he's asked him twice now. He's asked him twice about the people going on this board and what kind of people are they going to be. And you notice this guy hasn't said a word yet about education. That's deliberate.
Will these new board members, do they have to have an educational background? Like,
oh boy, I think I just told you all that was coming, that this reporter was thorough and that he was asking these preparatory questions for a reason. And so when he gets to this part here, now you just heard him say, well, do you have to have background in education? You would figure that you already know the answer. No, you don't.
Need to be people of integrity and character. They need to have their wits about them. They need to recognize that they exist not for the district to serve them, but they exist to serve the students and the teachers of Houston ISD, real servant leaders who understand their role as members of a governing body.
will these new board members, do they have to have an educational background? Like, have they been teachers?
Yeah, we would prefer a really diverse set of professional experiences, life experiences, because only when you have differing perspectives and differing backgrounds at a table can you come together and make the best decisions for a very diverse student population. So we would expect some to have teaching backgrounds, but some potentially to have backgrounds in finance, and what you would want is a mix of experiences.
Mm. So you're going to change the superintendent.
So did you notice that? Did you notice that? Did you notice that? Did you hear that? Just what I told you there. Oh, well, this opens it up to cronyism and every damn thing else. This opens up to cronyism and everything else. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? That's the kind of thing I'm referring to here. This opens it up to cronyism. He's letting you know, oh, education, not necessarily, no. See, we want some business folk to come in here. We want our friends. We want our cronies. We want them to be here. We want them to be on deck. So did you notice the brother was asking the right questions and led up to that point there? Oh, well, not really. Not really. Not really.
You're going to change the school board. So what will be different about how you govern than what's already being governed?
Yeah, this is a great question. People ask us what has been also our track record with boards of managers in the state. So over the last 20 years, there's been 7 board of managers placements to operate school districts for any extended period of time. And in some of those were placed for reasons of finance or governance problems in a district, but some of them were placed for academic reasons. For every academic placement, academic outcomes have improved. And in fact, they improved even in the non-academic placements in all but one of those interventions. And that one, it didn't go down, it just remained unchanged because it was there to correct financial problems. So what the governing body is there to do is to set a strategic direction, to create focus, to make sure that the tone at the top is one of innovation and service towards students above all else, to make sure that they can make decisions related to resource allocation within the school system so that kids at every school, not just some schools in Houston, but at every school have access to rigorous extracurricular activities, to advanced coursework, that we can help improve the lives of kids regardless of where they are geographically in Houston. And it just takes focused leadership. At the end of the day, this is about the leadership focus of the governing body to make sure that adult interests are secondary to the needs of children.
Are you saying that currently you believe that adult interests supersede the interests of the children?
Let me speak as a former school board member, also in a big city, because I was on the school board
Dallas.
in Dallas for 4.5 years.
Okay, so now you all know where they got him from. They got him from Dallas. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to go forward a little bit. Here. And by the way, if I can get somebody to get a treadmill for Unique, and my mod's there, if you can get a treadmill for her, I appreciate it. She's needing to get back in shape here. So if possible, let us know. My mods are a little bit tired. Eve needs rehab and Unique needs a treadmill. So I need my mods to pay. I need somebody to help them out here so we can get attention on it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go forward here a little bit to the 11-minute mark because I want you to hear what they had to say. I want you to hear this suit of questions right here. I found this to be very interesting. I've got them marked for that because I want you to hear what he had to say when he's asking about whether or not the board needs to be democratically elected or not, and whether or not that's an issue.
It's not about blaming individuals. This is about a course correction so that what we give our kids in Houston is the best we possibly can.
Some parents told us they like the idea of a democratically elected board instead of people being appointed. And you say?
Well, I ran for school board in Dallas. So this 200-plus year experiment in democracy that we have is something I'm mighty proud of, as are, I think, most Americans. And so that is important. But when you think about our...
Now, did you hear that? So the reporter asked him, there are some people who are saying they don't like the idea of not having an elected board. Well, this 230-year experiment in democracy, I think that's great. But, so just understand, we are deep, deep, deep off into I'm white and I say so. We are deep off into it. Now, you heard that. He was asked, they have an issue about being democratically elected. Yeah, democracy ain't working. Yeah, we know about that. Take a look at the way his head starts swinging around. Remember at the beginning, he was looking directly at the host. Remember? He was kind of looking at the host. He's a little squirrely, but he was looking at the host. But when you ask him about this part, take a look at his whole body language, his entire demeanor. Everything shifts, everything changes.
Best we possibly can.
Some parents told us they like the idea of a democratically elected board instead of people being appointed. And you say?
Well, I ran for school board in Dallas. So this 200-plus year experiment in democracy that we have.
You see him swinging his arms around. For those of you who worked in the legal field, in law enforcement, you know a nervous, guilty suspect when you see one. He literally could not begin addressing this without completely falling apart.
Appointed. And you say?
Well, I ran for school board in Dallas. So this 200-plus year experiment in democracy that we have is something I'm mighty proud of, as are, I think, most Americans.
Look at the reporter. You see the way the reporter is sitting? You notice he never changes? Then you take a look at the fella he's talking to. If you want a clear, concise, undeniable example and illustration of who's guilty, take a look at the way the reporter is sitting, and then take a look at how his interview subject responds. Just take a look at it.
So this 200-plus year experiment in democracy that we have is something I'm mighty proud of, as are, I think, most Americans. And so that is important. But when you think about our republic, we live in a country that was founded on the principles that speak to the highest ideals of man, that all men are created equal, that we're endowed with certain rights. School, public school in particular, is the deliverer of those rights. It is what equips young Americans to pursue the American dream, to try, to fail, to succeed, to pick themselves up when they fail. And if we do not have schools that equip our children with the ability to read, write, and do math and do it at high levels, then we should have grave concerns for the future of our democracy. Because this is the future of the country. So it is critical that schools meet their mission, that they deliver on this promise of the American Republic. And so, yes, we are focused on ensuring we continue to sustain our democratically controlled schools. This will be a temporary intervention. It will return back to democratically elected governance. But we have got to make sure that we are serving students so that they can be engaged citizens in the Republic.
How long will this temporary intervention last?
It's hard to say with precision. One of the things that the law sets up is there's a specific set of criteria that you go through before a return to electoral control. There's a specific timeline that's spelled out in law. But a key condition is that whatever circumstances that led to the intervention, those circumstances have got to be remedied.
So if a school was failing, then it has to pass.
That's the short version of it. Yes.
So many years.
So what I would say is there's three specific exit criteria that we are focused on. One is we want to see no more multi-year DRF campuses in Houston. Period.
Failing campus.
DRF, multi-year. Yeah, and it's possible that 1 year an individual campus.
Now, for those of you, I'm going back to what I said here before. Now, for those of you who would be assuming we don't want to see any more D or F campuses in Houston, we don't want to see any more multi-year D and F campuses in Houston. So what some of you would be thinking is, I'll be damned, the whole Houston school district has just gone to hell. That's what you would be thinking. Now, to give you a little bit of clarity here, they tried to do this takeover back in 2019. So what he's saying is, when he said at the beginning about the Supreme Court of Texas stepped in, they tried to, the court system in Texas stepped in because they tried to do this takeover back in 2019, 4 years ago. It got stopped because of the courts, and the courts have only now allowed it to go through because they actually changed the law. They changed the law. So 4 years later, they're coming back and saying, okay, now that we have the authority, we're going to step in. Now, you would be assuming that the Houston School District has been screwed up for the last 4 years and that that's the reason they're coming in. Wrong, wrong, wrong. And he's actually going to admit it. So I'm detangling this for you here because it can be a little bit confusing, but in reality, he's giving the impression that the school district is all messed up and that that's the reason they got to step in even 4 years later. And in reality, that is not the case. And he's about to admit it, but he's about to do blatant, I'm white and I say so. Pay attention.
Campus has struggles, but we do not want to see multi-year DRF campuses. We also want to see special education that is operating in compliance with federal and state law.
We all know how great black children get treated in special education in the state of Texas. We all know how great that goes.
The number of special education problems in Houston ISD that have got to be remedied. We have got to make sure that we are serving our students with disabilities as effectively as we can. And then the third key criteria is that the procedures of the board, the governing body itself, is being executed with a focus on student outcomes, not on other things. So these are the three key exit criteria that we're looking for. And once
student outcomes, not on other things. By the way, he never once says what the so-called other things that he's so worried about. He never once says what those alleged quote-unquote other things are. He never says it. He gives you the impression that the schools are not doing well enough. But wait till the reporter gets into the details.
Those have been met, then we start the process to transition back to the board of trustee control.
What's your best guess that this is going to take?
Well, if you look at, again, there have been 7 board of managers interventions.
And on average?
Roughly. A little time as possible, but we want to make sure that the exit criteria are met.
This takeover idea started because of poor academic performance at Wheatley High School and also some allegations of misconduct among school board members.
Now, did you all hear that? He said this takeover action began because of one school. There are almost 300 schools in the Unified School District, Independent School District. But they instituted this takeover action because of one, allegedly because of one school, Wheatley High School, just one. Hundreds of schools were going to take over, but the scores are not good at one school. So we need to take over the whole Houston school district. No, I'm not joking. The guy's literally going to admit it here in a moment that, yeah, we want to take over the whole district because of one school. So what I'm saying is that if you listen to him from the beginning, and if you're listening with a racist, stereotypical mind, and some of y'all got a white supremacist sitting on one shoulder, you would just assume, well, we's our own worst enemies here, and it is Houston, Texas, that's the home of the ghetto boys. So, it's probably just a whole bad school district. It's the Bronx Zoo, and everything's messed up, and they ain't learning nothing out there, and it's all bad. No, one school. And wait a minute. Even about that one school, you haven't heard all the details yet. You haven't heard all the details about this one school just yet. So I'm going to back it up a little bit, but wait till you hear the details about it, because then you're going to say, well, I'll be damned. Some of the assumptions you might have made, you're going to find out are horrifically wrong, which is why you got to get the whole story before you start assuming anything.
Little time as possible, but we want to make sure that the exit criteria are met.
This takeover idea started because of poor academic performance at Wheatley High School and also some allegations of misconduct among school board members. Wheatley got a passing grade last year. Old board was kicked out, new board came on. So why now?
Yeah,
Did you hear that? The reporter sat there and knocked it out of the park and said, okay, you instituted this action because of one school, Wheatley High School. They were behind. There were allegations of chicanery with the school board. Okay, most of the school board's been voted out. Wheatley now has a passing score. They have a C. They were a F. They're now a C. They have a passing score from the Texas Education Department's criterion. The school now has a passing score, and yet they've announced, yeah, we want to take over the school district anyway. That's what he just said. We want to, yeah, it's a passing score, but we want to take over the school district anyway. I know, I haven't let him say it just yet. I'm going to let him go ahead and say it now. But yeah, I'm bringing this together because I want you to hear what he said. He's going to sit here and admit that when the reporter confronts him, hey, the school district's got a passing score. The school board that you were worried about, a lot of them are gone. Why are you still trying to take it over now if the issue has been resolved?
Little time as possible, but we want to make sure that the exit criteria are met.
This takeover idea started because of poor academic performance at Wheatley High School and also some allegations of misconduct among school board members. Wheatley got a passing grade last year. Old board was kicked out, new board came on. So why now?
Yeah, it's a great question because to the credit of the current board, they're performing better than before. You don't see public acrimony at board meetings. You don't see the same kind of malfeasance.
So why replace them?
Before. Ultimately, the law
Body
requires
language.
The Commissioner of Education. This is a
Body
statute.
language. Do you see his body language when he's asked again, why now? Take a look at how he slumps down the chair and looks at the floor. This is a guilty Dennis the Menace little bastard. If you ever saw one, take a look at the body language, people.
Don't see the same kind of malfeasance.
So why replace them?
Before. Ultimately, the law requires the Commissioner of Education. This is a statute. It's not something I have control over. The law requires the Commissioner of
Blame shifting. The law requires, it's not something I have control over. Blame shifting, slumping down in the chair, setting his eyes down. Body language, people. Body language.
The Commissioner of Education. This is a statute. It's not something I have control over. The law requires the Commissioner of Education to intervene in one of two ways after any campus reaches 5 years of unacceptable performance.
Wheatley High School.
Wheatley reached that in 2019. And so this order that is required under law is required because of what occurred in 2019. We actually issued this order in 2019, but have been stayed by the courts for 3 years. So now that the courts have ruled that ultimately the intervention was in fact fully authorized in 2019, I'm constitutionally sworn officer. We now have to proceed with what is mandated under law.
I know.
I mean, did you hear that? Well, yeah, there was a problem back in 2019, according to us, and we were stopped from doing what we wanted to do to, quote, fix the problem 4 years ago. Since we were stopped from coming in and taking over and, quote, fixing the problem, the issue has resolved itself. However, because we were denied to come in 4 years ago, we are now insisting to take over 4 years later, even though the problem has been resolved. Now, this isn't me saying it. This is the Texas Commissioner of Education saying this. This is him admitting it. This is him admitting it now. Yeah, I mean, we were supposed to take over in 2019. We were stopped. The issue has been resolved. Things have changed. But because we weren't able to take over 4 years ago, well, we're going to take it over now. Folks, this is white supremacy 101. Now listen to the next question that he's about to be asked. You've already heard what he thinks of democracy. You've already heard what he thinks of the right to take over a school. Listen to this next question here.
Was mandated, but a broader question is this. Is it fair to take over a district of 274 schools based on the failure of one school?
This is a great question of public policy, and this is, I think, when
Body language again. Squirrely, nervous, squeamish, looking around the room, swinging his head around. So the brother did an excellent job of asking the questions. He knocked it out of the park, and this little bastard is wriggling like a worm on a fishing hook.
I know it's mandated, but a broader question is this. Is it fair to take over a district of 274 schools based on the failure of one school?
This is a great question of public policy, and this is, I think, when you look at why the legislature adopted this law in the first place, it, I think, gets to these basic ideals and principles about how education is supposed to work. What if education works for some, but not all? Is that acceptable? Is that something we should simply allow?
So if failure at Wheatley is happening, then you must come in and take over to ensure that the whole district stays where it is.
The way the law is structured,
Less than 1% of the schools, people. One school out of almost 300. That's a third of 1%. In Louisiana, we would be doing backflips down Texas Avenue if the failure rate was that low. We literally we wouldn't even let the parents come to schools anymore. Y'all just gonna come mess it up. Forget about it. We doing good. And the parents would be like, you know what? Don't let us come to schools. We can only come mess it up for you. Y'all doing great. And do you hear what he's saying there? Yeah, one school out of 300. So you all are not stupid. You understand. One school out of 300, almost 300. And the one school is no longer failing. Where's your justification? So the reporter has made it very clear, this isn't about that school. And this damn sure isn't about the school district. This is about something else. And I'm going to get to what that something else here is in just a moment.
is that if a single campus has chronic underperformance issues that is not remedied by the district, it is ultimately the responsibility.
But it was remedied by the district. He just conceded that while they were battling out in court, that the district fixed the issue and they now have a passing grade. He just admitted it, and yet he's going back, well, I'm white and I say so.
Is happening, then you must come in and take over to ensure that the whole district stays where it is.
The way the law is structured is that if a single campus has chronic underperformance issues that is not remedied by the district, it is ultimately the responsibility of the school board to solve those problems, and therefore it's ultimately the remedy under state law to deal with that problem at the school board level.
Look at the way he is sitting. Could he be more guilty? Could he folks, if this were the first 48 and you saw the detective on the right speaking to the suspect on the left, could he possibly be more guilty?
Chronic underperformance issues that is not remedied by the district, It is ultimately the responsibility of the school board to solve those problems, and therefore it's ultimately the remedy under state law to deal with that problem at the school board level.
There are some people who think this is going to be a good idea. There are those who do not. Some parents and teachers told us, quote, "We just can't walk in and take over a school, especially a school that has made progress."
Yeah, we're not taking over an individual school. What we are doing is appointing a new local governing body for the district.
Yeah, that's even worse, as opposed to focusing on the one school that you admit is the only issue, allegedly. You're saying, yeah, we're going to take over the whole school district now. Folks, you know full well that doesn't make any mathematical or logical sense. This defies logic and reason. And yet they're still insisting on doing it, which means this ain't about the school or the school district. This is about something else.
And then the goal of that governing body is to be laser focused on meeting the needs of students so that there are no more chronically underperforming campuses in Houston.
Will there be any layoffs?
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip forward a little bit here.
About something. Who appoints these board of managers?
Me. Whole reason
Heard that?
This is happening.
I want to be clear about something. Who appoints these board of managers?
Me.
You get that? Did you all get that? The brother asked all the right questions to encapsulate this and put it in a nutshell and crystallize it. Did you get that? I want to be clear about this. Who is it who's going to be appointing this new board that's going to take over from the elected officials? Me. I'm going to be doing it. Me. Oh, well, no, I'll do it. But I'm telling you, it's not about a school or a school district. It's not about that. It's about something else. The same thing it's always about.
Decisions that they think are in the best interest of kids. That's the whole reason that this is happening.
I want to be clear about something. Who appoints these board of managers?
Me.
So are they reporting back to you?
Yes. So it's a good question because what I am attempting to do is select people, again, of character and integrity and wisdom, and put them into a position where they can gather all the needed information that they need on a daily, weekly basis and make governing decisions accordingly.
So is it possible, Mike, that a board of managers will come in and decide X number of teachers need to go? That's their call, not your call.
That's correct, and you can hypothesize.
But he's the one who's going to select him, so he was chosen because he is a party flunky, and he's going to choose other folks who are party flunkies and part of the machine. So we already know which way this is going to go. We already know which way this is going to go. So for those of you who are just saying to yourselves, well, Jason, I mean, you know, it is Houston, Texas. It is Houston now. You got to understand, they don't know how to do nothing right there. You know, it's like New Orleans West, Jason. It's on I-10, it's New Orleans West, Jason. So, you know, you understand, Houston is just going to hell. They just admitted 271 schools. Only one was actually not meeting the damn grade, and that one fixed its issues over the last 4 years. Yeah, we taking over anyway. Yeah, we'll take that over anyway. Now, nobody is talking about taking over Uvalde, Texas, where the mad gunmen are running around blowing away everything moving. Don't worry about that. No issues there. We're not worried about that now. That's not a problem. But Houston, well, there's one school that now gets a C grade. Well, yeah, the state got to step in. What about Uvalde? Buy flag jackets.
This is conceptually not all that different than elections that happen every November because new board members come, board members go. And so this is a change in the governing body.
Does Superintendent House know he's being replaced?
So I try to keep a very open dialogue with Superintendent House.
Boy, I'm telling you, that's a great question. I try to keep an open line to Superintendent House. Boy, I'm telling you, this guy right here, folks, I mean, you don't need an investigative reporter. Channel 11 already gave you everything. You don't need an investigative reporter to see what the hell's going on here. Now, as you all know, Texas is one of those states that has rewritten the history books. In fact, it was the first one. They're trying to remove slavery from the history books and say everybody was just workers. Everybody was just immigrants. Ain't no white supremacy, historical racism in the Constitution. What's that? So Texas, remember when they did their redoing of the books a decade ago, they told the publishers what they wanted in it and what they didn't want in it, and they made it clear to them, yeah, all this talking about slavery starts putting thoughts in the heads of these young black people. It starts putting thoughts in their heads. So you need to start removing that from the books. Oh yeah, and the civil rights era. You're giving too many pages to that. You need to remove some of that, and we need to just make it like 1 or 2 pages, and that's all it is. So the major parts and foundations of American history, they're telling you make it only 1 or 2 pages or rip it out of the books altogether, but you're gonna hear how wonderful Thomas Jefferson was, just no talk of Sally Hemings or any of that 3 black people, 3/5 of a person, or anything troublesome like that. And now it's moved on to Tennessee, Arkansas, Florida. Oh yeah, Florida. Where they're getting in the history books now telling the kids that black people were immigrants, servants, workers. It wasn't the transatlantic slave trade, it was the transatlantic passage. The transatlantic journey. These are hardcore American Nazis. I will not mince words about it. These are hardcore, dyed-in-the-wool, race-warring American Nazis. And they are starting with the erasure of history. They're bringing over immigrant groups hostile to the descendants of the slaves, hostile to freedmen, hostile to us, and then telling you that your history is the same as theirs. What do you mean, slavery and white supremacy? Next thing you know, your kids come home concerned about hairstyles, tennis shoes, cell phones, and they're saying the same things that their immigrant schoolmates are saying. What white supremacy? We don't need no reparations. Nothing happened to us. You just need to work harder. As a matter of fact, if you want reparations, you should get a scholarship and go back to school. But I'm 55 years old. Never too late to start learning. So if you want to know what this diabolical plan is, this diabolical scheme is, that's what it is. That's what it is. And they're showing you what they're concerned about by targeting the largest enclave of black people in the state. And if that sounds very familiar to you, well, it's because it is. It is. Yeah, your largest black enclave, targeted for takeover. Never mind the fact that black folk are dying in Houston jails. Never mind about that. Don't worry about that at all. Don't let that get in your way whatsoever. That's not a concern. That's not a bother. Any more than you should be worried about black people dying in the prisons in Mississippi. Mississippi State wants to do a takeover, ain't worried about the prisons. Houston Department of Education, the state wants to take over the Department of take over education in Houston, but as far as the jails killing folk, don't worry about that. No, we're not worried about that. That's not we don't need to take over that, because it's working exactly the way we want it to. People, you are in the middle of a race war. You are smack dab in the middle of a race war. With the wholesale editing and censorship of your history books, and now they want to take over the school system, and they want to run it for the next 4 or 5 years. You know what that means. They want to run that school district for the next 4 or 5 years. By the time they get done, it will be unrecognizable. It will have a brand new curriculum that completely whitewashes everything. Your children will come home with history books that will tell them that nothing's wrong with America whatsoever, everything is just fine, and that your children need to be concerned with maintaining the status quo, not overturning it. Because there's nothing to overturn, because everything's just fine. What police brutality? You should have just complied. You want to know another reason why they're targeting Houston? I want y'all to understand something. For some of you out there who were just assuming, and you should be guilty because you know you were, you know who you are, who you were just assuming. Well, you know, Jason, I mean, you know that it is Houston, Texas. I mean, you know, it can't be good, Jason. It can't be very good. I mean, it is Houston. There's a bunch of us there, Jason, so it can't be good. There's one more thing I want you all to understand here. If the Houston school district and the Houston school system is so damn bad and so damn terrible and so damn inept, will someone explain this to me? Now, I live in Louisiana, and I heard about this. Everyone should know about this right now. If the Houston school system is so bad and so terrible and so inept, and the state needs to come in and run it, and it's such a failure, explain this to me. Explain this. Not Silicon Valley, not Miami, not New York. For those of you who didn't know, this is Houston. Yeah, there's a bunch of you who didn't know this. Not Austin. Elon Musk wants to build his Tesla plant there, but if you want to talk about who is really throwing elbows to be the tech hub in Texas, y'all didn't know Houston isn't just throwing elbows. Houston is winning. Houston is winning. But if you listen to the white supremacists at the Department of Education in Houston, they would tell you, oh, Houston isn't doing very well. And then they'll tell you, oh, I mean, yeah, everything's going fine, but we're still not happy with Houston. Well, what is it you're really trying to do then? What exactly is it that you really want to do? Because we just established there's nothing wrong with the education system. There's nothing wrong with the school district. Certainly nothing that justifies a wholesale takeover. So what is it you really want to do? What is it that's really motivating you? And brothers and sisters from around the world, I submit to you that this is a race war to colonize the hearts and minds of your children for the next generation so that they will be black on the outside, but they will identify and think like white supremacists on the inside, and they will simply let the matter of racism and white supremacy go. That they will simply resign themselves to be residents of the city, prisoners in the state, or employees at a corporation, but that mentally and emotionally they've been conditioned through the schools to not challenge the status quo. And then they'll tell you that Houston is what it is today because of the wonderful genius, charity, and largesse of the white society, and that even though Houston's a majority black city, it wasn't us who did this. In 5 or 10 years, they'll be telling you that what you see on your screen right now is because of the white population. So they'll concede there's a black population running it. They'll concede there's a black population in charge of the schools, and then tell you that we were messing everything up and it took the state to step in and, quote, fix it without ever telling you, by the way, it wasn't broken. By the way, if the school system is so bad, how can you bring so many tech companies to Houston if your population is so damn dumb? If your population is so illiterate and so dumb, you don't bring tech companies to a place where people are stupid and illiterate. You bring them to Louisiana and you build an oil field, but you don't bring high-tech companies there. Yeah, I know, I'm gonna catch hell for that. But in any case, you don't bring major tech companies to a city where folk can't read and can't write and the school district is so damn messed up. You don't do that. Folks, they expect you to seriously believe that that's what you do. That these companies have done absolutely no research, no checking. They don't know the quality of the people who live there. That they don't have any idea what's going on. That these companies are just showing up because, well, Texas is a no income tax state. We'll roll the dice. Texas is a no income tax state, so the kids might be dumb as a tree stump, but we'll roll the dice. You don't do that. They didn't go to San Francisco because the San Francisco school systems are awful. They don't go to New York because the New York schools are awful. They don't go to Denver because the Denver schools are awful. They don't show up in Atlanta because the Atlanta schools are awful. You don't send a major tech company to an awful place. You don't send them to a place where there's just nothing, it's all backwards. You don't do that. Who the hell you gonna hire? You can't bring the Asians and the Indians in on day one. So folks, if you were succumbing to the assumption that that's what it was, that it was just all messed up, if you were worried about that, if you were thinking, well, Jason, I mean, you gotta understand, it is Houston now. We've gone over all the details. Folks, what they are conceding is that Houston is on its way to becoming the next Atlanta, and they are here to take it over now. We're gonna get the children by co-opting the school system. We're gonna get the adults by murdering them in the prisons. But this is a takeover. Elections won't work. That's what they're conceding from the beginning. Elections won't work. It won't work. We can't do anything to help it. Elections won't work. So we're not going to sit here and wait for another election. It won't work. We're losing. If black folk are left alone long enough, they are eventually gonna get it together, and none of them are gonna look to you as their savior. Case in point, Atlanta, Texas. Case in point, DC, for all of its evils and ills. DC doesn't look to white people as their savior. Philadelphia doesn't look to white folk as their saviors. Atlanta doesn't look to white people as their saviors. A lot of foolery and buffoonery going on, but they don't look to white folk as their saviors. Even in Chicago, Chicago doesn't really look to white people as their saviors in politics. So when you let these people get some confidence about themselves and you leave them alone long enough, they finally reach an equilibrium. They give up on the idea that you're coming at all, and next thing you know, they open the turkey leg hut with no assistance from you whatsoever. With no help, with you trying to assail them and assault them at every step of the way. They open up a Sweetie Pies, they open up a Sylvia's with no help from you whatsoever. So you can't tell them that you were the necessary ingredient because they all know that they did it without you. You better step in now. You better get in there now while you still can. You better get in there now and try to wreck it while you still can. White flight didn't work. It didn't work in Houston. Black folk didn't wither on the vine. White flight as a tool of annihilation and genocide didn't work. It failed. And now they're saying, well, since we tried it the subtle way, let's try this damn thing the straight up gangster way. We're just gonna gangster our way through this. Yeah, it was your school district, now it's ours. We just gangstering in. We just gonna gangster through the, yeah, the school district, there's nothing wrong with the school district. Yeah, we gangstering it anyway. We just doing it like this. What you gonna do? We just gangstering this damn thing. because we don't want your children to think that they can actually run something themselves. They want your children to believe that they're not smart enough and not capable enough. They want them to believe that they are failures. And I'm showing you that even the white supremacists saying that they want to take over the school system are admitting it, that there's nothing wrong with it. But we were fighting for this 4 years ago. We want to take it today anyway, even though there's no justification for it. Even though there isn't one. Give it to us anyway. We want to take charge of it anyway. Well, you can't say you want to take charge of it to fix it because there ain't nothing to fix. So what do you want to do? Well, if there's nothing for you to fix, then there's only one thing you can be here to do. You here to wreck it. Because you can't fix it. However, you might disagree. Therefore, the telephone lines are now open. The number is 646-787-1933. That's 646-787-1933. Your personal access code to the black media. Peeling back the layers of the onion, dissecting the topics, doing the insight and analysis that you will receive absolutely nowhere else. A lot of you may have heard about them taking over the school district in Houston, but did you know what you heard here tonight? Did you hear what you heard here tonight? Which is, in reality, it's only one out of the 271 schools. It's only one. That school, they tried to take over 4 years ago. They got stopped by a lawsuit, and during that 4-year period, the school has fixed the issues and is now receiving a passing grade. And they said, yeah, we ain't gonna let little things like the facts get in the way. We're not gonna allow that to get in the way. If you're not gonna give us the school, we gon' gangster it. But we'll be damned if we're gonna look up here and you all gonna be running it. We thought Houston was gonna, and let me just be very clear, Houston is an old industrial, it reminds me of Philadelphia, can we keep it real? Houston is an old industrial town. Yeah, it's over congested. Yeah, it's kind of dirty. Yeah, it's got a whole bunch of industrial waste and things. Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. It's nothing like Dallas. Dallas came up a lot cleaner. Nothing like Austin, state capital. Doesn't have natural resources, but it's protected because it's a state capital. You know, nothing like, Amarillo, El Paso. It's not San Antonio. It isn't one of those places. But black folk hung in there and said, you know what? It ain't the prettiest damn thing, but it's ours. I want y'all to understand the value of being able to say the words that I just said. Yeah, it's Houston. Yeah, it can be a little grimy sometimes. Yeah, it ain't the prettiest thing, but it's ours. And we're gonna because we accepted and own it as ours, we're gonna make it the prettiest thing before it's over. Same thing in Atlanta. Atlanta compared to everywhere else, New York, LA, Miami, all these other entertainment hubs. Atlanta made itself into one. Yeah, we ain't the biggest and glitziest like New York. Yeah, we ain't the most well-paid like LA. Yeah, we ain't the prettiest, but it's ours. Welcome, Outcast. It's ours. Take a look at the name, Outcast. Hey, we ain't from New York. We ain't in there like that, but it's ours. And look what happened within the course of a decade, simply on the strength of saying, hey, it ain't the prettiest, but it's ours. Now I'll be damned if it ain't the prettiest. It's the prettiest now. It wasn't the prettiest then. I'll be damned. It's the prettiest now. I've spent many a moon in Atlanta. It's the prettiest now, damn it. Busiest airport in America, one of the most congested downtowns. It ain't congested because folks trying to get out. It's not congested because folks is trying to run. It's congested because everybody trying to get in. And we can say the same thing across the board. There is power in you looking at the dirt you stand on and the land you're on and having faith in yourself and saying, you know what? It ain't the prettiest thing, but it's ours. Next thing you know, it starts becoming all those things because you have faith in yourself. But if I take over your school systems and tell you it was a white man who put the game in you and made you what you are, then you start saying it's not the prettiest thing, but if we can get some more white folk to run it, it will be. And then you never develop faith in yourself. And then when you take a look, when they show up, you realize they didn't do a damn thing you couldn't have done for yourself. Probably done better and faster. The telephone lines are now open. The number is 646-787-1933. That's 646-787-1933. Your personal access code to the Black media. Let me get caller from area code 323. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, good evening, Big Brother Jason. This is Brother Elijah calling from JFK Airport, Jamaica, Queens, New York.
All right, nigga, it sounds like you up under one of the planes. What's on your mind?
I apologize, Big Brother. I apologize. I'll call you right back. I'll call back.
Some of us need to get our lives together. Call from area code 470. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, this is Joe calling from Atlanta.
Joe from Atlanta, what's on your mind?
Hey, Jason. Hey, so you just said something that just really touched me in terms of being in Atlanta, Georgia. So, as you know, and I know this is not the business, but you were influential in me moving to Nashville to take a medical sales job. My new company just moved me back to Atlanta. So, being a graduate of the Atlanta University Center here, those schools, like you said, we weren't the prettiest. You know, we grind it out. We make, but we turned our education into something beautiful, and it's ours. I mean, I think that just the pride and the brotherhood that I've, as a young man, you know, coming up, that I got from being in Atlanta. Like I said, we're not the prettiest, but it's ours. We take pride in it. We don't do everything correctly, but one thing I will say, we don't look for white people as our saviors. We don't feel like they're better than us. We don't look to go to their establishments to feel that we have to spend their money. We look for ours. We look for the Morehouse, Clark, Spelman,
Southern. I'm from Louisiana,
HBCUs.
so I gotta bring it back to the Southern cooking. You know, whether it's Sweetie Pie, Southern cooking, whether it's what's cracking. Let me tell y'all something. If y'all have never been to Atlanta, these are places where there's lines out the door before the place opens. There are lines out the door before the place opens. I ain't talking about no damn Krispy Kreme or Panera Bread. I'm talking about you can't get this unless you come to the A. You can't get it. I should know. I was one of the niggas standing outside the place. So I'm not going up in there. You see that line? Got there at what, 9 o'clock? I'm like, oh, nigga, you about 30 minutes too late. Maybe 30 minutes or an hour. And that gives you pride in yourself. Not just for the people who live there, but the folk who work there. When you work at a place and you know, hey, no white folk had nothing to do with this. This is all us. They had nothing to do with this. You don't have a white savior to go run to or to give thanks to. So think what that does to your mindset, is that you can't literally even conceive that, well, let me go find a white person. Well, I ain't got one to go thank for this. We did it on our own. That's it. Don't you know that's the sound of chains snapping? That's the sound of shackles breaking on your mind. When you can name all these places that are popping, all these places that got it cooking, all these places that are blowing up, and it's not a white face anywhere around, don't you know they are terrified that you will accept that yeah, that's the reality. Then you're going to be looking at them side-eye from here on in, and then you'll start asking other questions. You know, why is the tallest building in downtown Atlanta white-owned? Why is the second tallest building white-owned? Why are we bowing and scraping to Ted Turner, who, when he was in a Civil War film, he chose the side of the Confederacy? Why do we need you again? I'll let you have the last word.
No one can say it better than you, Jason. But like you said, the busy bees here. I'll give a shout out to my brothers at the James Room. My brothers over there at Morehouse. We look for us. And I didn't even think about it until you said that. I'll spend all week long not even think about going into a white establishment. And so it's a certain pride that you have. Like you said, it's the shackles breaking. And I'll leave it there. Be one all day.
Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. And brothers and sisters, if I get a little excited over here, you know, business is my wheelhouse because economics is what's going to set us free. And yeah, Atlanta got some issues, but then again, where the hell don't? Yeah, it's got some issues, but what I'm saying is my people ain't just sitting on their hands doing nothing. I'm always going to critique when things aren't going right, but you're going to get your props for what's going correctly. And black folk as a group in Atlanta are not really looking to white folks to run nothing for them. Don't you know that is the scariest thought in the world for a slave owner or an overseer, that his workers ain't really looking for him to show up. They're like, as a matter of fact, you know what? We think it'd be better if you wasn't around. We can run things just fine without you. Just that mindset alone, just knowing that they think that. Don't you know your days are numbered? Don't you know your days are numbered? Call America code 281. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
All right, then, Brother Jason. So, Reginald, I'm calling from Houston, Texas, 5th Ward.
Reginald from Houston, what's on your mind?
You know, they've been trying to take 5th Ward for a long time. You know, 5th Ward has a lot of history. And, you know, the thing about, like, Wheatley in particular, you know, Wheatley has always been, like, the poorest of all the schools in HISD. But in spite of that, Wheeler's record speaks for itself. You know, we won a lot of championships at Wheeler, and that includes the fights as well. So they've always tried to take 5th Ward. And so now what they've done is they got some coons on the school board, some coons that were just in politics that were paving the way for 5th Ward to be taken. And they are, what they're getting ready to do is, like not too far from Wheeling, they're getting ready to build a river walk from the street called Lockwood Drive all the way to downtown Houston. That back part where Clinton Drive is, or like where Wheeling is, it's gentrified. Well, 5th Ward is being gentrified. So they built Wheeler a new school a few years ago, and I said when they build this new school, that's not for us, man. That's for some other people. They're going to gentrify. I tried to warn people, man. Over 20 years ago, I went to the meeting when they were talking about gentrifying 5th Ward, and it was just hard for me to get my people galvanized, man. And now it's kind of like it's too late. And so now, yeah, they're going to get ready to take Wheeler because the demographic is going to change. And the whole while I was going to those HISD meetings, I was like, look, all Wheatley need is the funds. Why do children want to go to North Shore and Odessa Permian opposed to going to Wheatley? Because they have a better program. Why come the money is not being trickling down to Wheatley so that the school could be attractive enough to attract the students? You know what I'm saying? That was the whole problem. And another thing with the scores is Wheatley is located about 4 blocks down the street is some train tracks. And on the other side of those train tracks is Mexicans neighborhood called Denver Harbor. So when I was going to Wheatley, those Mexicans would show up on the first day, and that was it. They dropped by, whatever. So all that takes a play in the test scores what goes on in Wheatley. They're not going to tell you the whole goddamn truth. So it's not like the children are so damn dumb. You know, it's all by design. They want to take it. And I hate to say it is that my people, man, don't want to get involved. When I used to go to those meetings, it was maybe like me and two other black people, the rest Mexicans and stuff. And we don't get involved until it's too damn late. And so now it's too late.
Well, I don't agree with that aspect. I can understand it can be hard when you've been stomping in the streets for 2 decades, and I get it. It can be demoralizing, and I understand that. I'm going to tell you, brother, if it was too late, the state wouldn't be stepping in. The state wouldn't be doing what they're doing now, so heavy-handed and ham-fisted and so blatant. The secret of white supremacy is supposed to be that it's invisible. I want you to understand, I'm not talking pie in the sky or hopium. I'm talking strategy, brother, because you sound like you older than me. You understand, white supremacy's strategy is that it's supposed to be invisible. Because the second that you stick your head up and you show the people, oh, I'm the one who's doing this to you, and yeah, it doesn't make any logical sense because it's so blatant, then at that point right there, the jig is up and everybody's gonna mobilize. So Houston, the black folk in Houston are still in too strong of a position to be able to do anything like that just now. What they're letting you know is that steam for them is running out. So they're like, man, screw it. We just bum rushing the door. I'm telling you, brother, as a person in Houston on the inside looking out, I know what it looks like, but you're not in a place that's not. Let me try this a different way. For those of you who live in major metropolitan areas, and Houston has become a major metropolitan area now, it wasn't 40 years ago. It was a big city, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't a major metropolitan area. It is now. As a matter of fact, Houston now is pretty much comprising what we're looking at as basically a mega city. So between Houston, Dallas, Austin, I mean, that whole area there now is really comprising a mega city now. It's becoming this mega hub, just like New York and New Jersey. It's becoming this mega hub there, just like Southern Florida. So when you consider that, for those of you who live there, just understand, you don't see the magnitude of what's happening. I'm from a smaller place, Shreveport, Louisiana. It's night and day difference. Granted, I'm glad not to have the traffic. I certainly don't want to have that. But as far as everything else, man, y'all don't actually see how much you really got if you're not looking at it. That's a great, big, huge piece of value there, man. And what they want to do is make sure that they preclude the idea that you could get any of that beforehand. So I do not want you to underestimate how valuable it is, nor how strong of a hold you got on it. But the other thing is, brother, this is good. I said this before, and I'm saying it again. This is good. Jason, why would you say that? Because black folk don't mobilize if the white supremacists ain't blatant with it. So if they waited until they really needed to, which is when all the pieces were in place, the game would be over. The game isn't halfway over yet, but they're already sticking their heads up, and now people are mobilizing. And that's what you want. You want folk to mobilize now. So, brother, I understand, might have been some deaf ears before, but you just got to understand, a lot of black folks are hard-headed, stiff-necked, and don't really take a move until the white supremacists are just burning crosses in the front yard. Sometimes it's got to get to that crisis point for everybody to catch up to where you at. And it's a shame. It'd be nice if they caught on to it early. That'd be great, but brother, that's throughout human history, when the people really moved until the bombs started dropping and the bullets started flying. There's a lot of us who like, hey, we could do something. If we don't do something in 10, 20 years, bombs going to be dropping, bullets going to be flying. And a lot of folks are going to say, yeah, are they flying right now? No, let me go take a picnic. Let me know when they start flying. You probably crying wolf. Then the bombs start going off. It's like, and who's the first person they come run to? They come to run folk like you. Oh, brother, man. Ooh, they messing us over here. Whitley, man, did you hear about what happened? Yeah, I told you 20 years ago they was coming. Oh man, they down there. They burned it. They doing it. They didn't just take the school. They taking the whole school district. Yeah, I told you that was going to. Yeah, I was trying to warn you that was going to happen then. Oh, we need to do something. Yeah, I said that 20 years ago. Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, it would have been nice if we started on this 20 years ago. So, brother, like I said, we just have to accept that that's the situation. That's the way people are. They've been accustomed to waiting until it's a damn crisis. That's the bad news. The good news, and I want you to embrace this. The good news is you can make some of your best progress in the middle of crisis. White supremacists go around the world creating crises. You're old enough to remember Korea, Vietnam, Grenada, Panama, Gulf War I, Gulf War II, Afghanistan, Libya, Egypt. These weren't places in crisis. The white supremacists went there and created a crisis so that they could create opportunity for themselves. So you're seeing it happen now. This is the time to get off the sidelines. Everybody's mobilized. Everybody's looking. This is where leadership like yours truly comes in useful. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller area code 804. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hello, this is Cassie from Virginia.
Okay, Cassie from Virginia. What's on your mind?
Well, I wanted to tell them that now I'm a child of integration, and they had everything set up for us. Well, this is not a new gameplay. This is an old one coming back out of desperation. I wish y'all could have seen our history books. They had the Indians in the book looking like they were so peaceful, and they were walking around, you know, doing this, that, but never fighting for their life. They had black people in there like we were happy people. So this is not new. But our generation and the generations before us were totally brainwashed. We already knew that. But I had a family of militants, okay, to tell me, even with those generations we had, we still emerge again fighting. They have done this before. This is not a new gameplay. They tried to play that on my generation, and it didn't work. And the way these kids are now, ain't gonna work with them either. Because they're even more than we ever were. So I'm just letting y'all know this is not new.
No, you're absolutely right. They were rewriting history. They were trying to rewrite these things from the beginning. We made some progress at pushing back against that, and for a while, I guess they thought, well, we'll placate them for a minute, and then they'll disappear. And then they just realized, oh, they're not going anywhere. They're going for the gold this time. Now they're getting really serious about it. But that's good because we need them to be this active. Thank you very much for giving us a call. Let me get caller area code 267. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hi, yes, this is Tammy calling from Williamsport, PA. Thank you for a great broadcast again. And this information is very important. I have family members in Texas, and definitely I'm going to send this over. And I appreciate the work you're doing because I never heard of this before. It's actually kind of crazy. I also wanted to ask you about the situation in Mississippi where they made some type of law that they can push people out of their houses. I don't know if you know about that one.
Caller area code 424. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from? Folks, don't call me up asking me questions because you're stopping the flow of the program. If you're going to say something, say what you got to say. Don't sit up and quiz Jason about it. Jason, have you heard this? Yes, Jason hears all this. Get to the point. Time is of the essence. All right, caller from 424. What's on your mind?
What's up, Brother Jason? How you doing? This is Moran from Houston.
All right, Moran from Houston. What's on your mind?
I'm actually a teacher over at HISD, and I'm very aware of what it is that you're talking about. And it's already a chaotic situation right now in the classroom. I teach world history. What is happening is that within the school district, at this point, most of the teachers, most of the students are non-white, and particularly many of the people that are running the district are black. The superintendent is black as well. But the curriculum that they are trying to push out is completely Eurocentric, more Eurocentric than I've ever seen before in my life. And you have many of these teachers, unfortunately, who are so complacent. A lot of them don't want to get up and organize and fight against any of these things. I know for Black History Month, particularly where I teach, it was an uphill battle having to fight against many of my own colleagues. They wanted to do the whole Wakanda spiel. And I told them, look, these kids are intelligent enough. These kids, I think we're doing them a disservice as educators, limiting them to entertainment. The icons that are up there on the wall and the icons that we're supposed to teach them have nothing to do with Wakanda, which is something that was made up by two white men. This is the mentality of some of my colleagues, And I'm not surprised it's gotten up to this point. But I think that like what you said, with this happening, it will force many of us to do the things that we need to do. Particularly, there needs to be schools for FBA students for us to particularly have our own self-interest and teach history the way that it's supposed to be taught.
Now, just so I can make sure here, so you work in the school system there, I just want to validate some of the things I said here. So, do you agree with my characterization about what they're doing with the school textbooks and what I see as the ultimate plan to do? They want to take this thing over for the next, they say in 4 years, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be longer than that if they can try to finagle it. And that by the time, if they ever let it go, by the time they do, it'll only be because they transformed it into something radically different, even more hideous than it already is.
No, what they're doing right now is ridiculous. I mean, like, for example, you have pictures of the Aztecs and the conquistadors, and they have pictures, and I'm not even exaggerating, of Hernan Cortez with his hand around an Indian's neck and a knife in his other hand after he's killed, in his foot on the hand on the body of an Indian that he just killed. And then they skip everything involving Africa, go straight into slavery. They don't talk about the tri-dynastic empires or anything. This is how Eurocentric the curriculum actually is. I've had to put a lot of my own supplemental material into the curriculum and teach it to my students in order for them to know these things. And these kids are not dumb. You know, I teach a lot of kids that are international, and you know, and I have a lot of my colleagues who are suspected white supremacists who get up and they agree with things like, for example, I mentioned Black History Month, them putting up people that they know are not icons of ours, like Condoleezza Rice or a Clarence Thomas or something like that. This is, you know, the level of disrespect that you see in terms of the curriculum, you know, with the students. I think that the only solution at this point is that we need our own schools. We need our own schools. They, you know, HISD, even with all the Black leadership that's there and the black teachers that's there, they're determined to whitewash everything. And like I said, try to turn Black History Month or try to turn anything involving Black people or non-white people, period. I don't want to make this an all lives matter thing, but try to make this about us, basically, into one big joke.
Well, definitely, if folk want to talk about reparations being in the form of education, well, you can fund a Black school district. I'll sign off on that one. In addition to everything else, yeah, we can do that. So that way, if they don't want to teach it in their schools, and furthermore, I don't even trust most of those people to be teaching that in the first place. I don't trust them to be teaching world history in the first place, because even those who claim to be sympathetic and whatnot, they're not really going to go in as far as they need to. So I agree with that completely. Thank you very much for giving us a call. Now let me get caller from area code 773. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hi, Jason. This is Matthew from Chicago.
Matthew from Chicago. What's on your mind?
I was listening to you earlier, and you were talking about Jackson, Mississippi. About 5 years ago, I remember them talking about a project that they were going to do where they were going to build, I guess they were going to hire a lot of Black construction companies or something like that to build a massive lake or something like that in the middle of the city. And they were going to, try and revitalize the city and get all sorts of traffic and people in there. And one of the things that I thought about it was that it was really amazing that they were coming up with these ideas, because they were going to make it a big thing. I believe that they heard these people had these great ideas, and they just decided they were going to destroy it right now.
Yeah, I mean, you see that whenever Black folk want to do these things. Now, when they put now the elections don't work for them, that's why they want to take over these places. The elections don't work, so you got, even if you don't have the Black politicians doing necessarily the best job, it's not going to be as advantageous. See, white folk are thinking about how is this going to affect them for the next 100 to 200, 300 years. So even if it's not everything that we want as Black folk, the white folk are like, this doesn't work out as well for us as it needs to. which is to say that we're the only ones who benefit. So even stuff that we consider to be, it's like, well, it's not really doing that great for us. The white folk are like, yeah, but it doesn't leave us in complete control. You getting too much. So they'll be all in favor of your river walks. They'll be all in favor of your lake fronts. They'll all be all in favor of your riversides, just so long as it benefits them and they get to control it. So when you come up with the idea, yeah, we squashing that. Next thing you know, they'll bring the idea back in 10, 15 years if they get some control of it. And then all of a sudden it'll look very similar to what you had before, but it's going to be, in addition to that, we're also building an entertainment district, and we want to build all the buildings, we want to give all the contracts, and we want to decide everybody who's going to get set up. So they're going to want to have control over it after it's finished. So that's the way that game works. Thank you very much for getting this call tonight. Let me get caller Miracle 323. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, good evening, Big Brother Jason. This is Brother Elijah calling out of JFK, Jamaica, Queens, New York.
All right, Elijah, what's on your mind?
Brother, I got a question for you. After listening to tonight's program, I have a lot of thoughts in my head, but this one is the most important. When did the era of end of white civility? What I mean by that, I say white civility in quotes. What I mean by that, you didn't have all this so much hostility in the 70s, 80s, even so much the 90s. Somewhere in the 2000 era, there was a break, and now they are just coming at us rapidly. And I'm trying to figure out, when did this whole thing came to an end?
Probably about the time Bill Clinton left office. When Bill Clinton left office, it's like, okay, being subtle doesn't work anymore. Bill Clinton was able to get a lot of your black politicians to go along with that 3 strikes you're in. Because they were older and they were part of the system and the apparatus. And what happened is during the 90s, black folk like me were teenagers. So we were aware of what was happening. We got a new black consciousness. Malcolm X rose to prominence after the civil rights generation abandoned him. We picked up Dr. King and started reading about him. The civil rights generation that lived through it were so beaten and broken and cowardly that they allowed white society to transform Dr. King into something he never was. And we picked it up and we started digging through it. And then we started saying, let's get to the real man here. As a matter of fact, I will go and quote Minister Louis Farrakhan at Malcolm X College 25 years after Malcolm had died. And he said, so you walk around with a t-shirt or a baseball cap with an X on it, or with a slogan, by any means necessary. And he said, but did you dig into the man to see who he was and what he stood for? Well, guess what? We took that to heart. We started digging into him. We didn't just watch a movie. We actually went and said, you know what? Let me go pick up that autobiography by Alex Haley. Let me pick that up. Then let me go watch this documentary, Make It Plain. Let me go watch that. Then let's go ahead and see these other interviews with the folks who were there. And let's go ahead and learn about his associates. Detroit Red, Chicago Red, Quincy Jones, Red Fox. And then you realize, then you start hearing Malcolm was a hustler. And then you see how that went. So we dug into the man, and now we've dug into Dr. King, and now the dominant society don't want to talk about King no more. Now that we've dug into Dr. King and said, wait a minute, he was saying cut the check before y'all blew his brains out. He said cut the check. Now they don't want to talk about Dr. King anymore. So when did it change? It changed about the time that Bill Clinton left office. He was standing on stage playing the saxophone in Arsenio, and the civil rights generation was laughing their asses off and talking about, yep, this is progress. We got him to come play the saxophone. This progress. We were the ones who came back and said, yeah, damn Bill Clinton. We were the ones who came back and said, what about 3 strikes? You know why? Because we were the ones that were leveling 3 strikes on. Those of us who were in high school when I was back in the early 90s. We were the ones who came out in the real world with them throwing football numbers at us that the civil rights generation never had to deal with. The civil rights generation was the ones saying, yeah, 3 strikes, yeah, lock them all up, because they identify with the white supremacists. We're the ones who had to deal with that. That's why we pushed back against it so hard, because they didn't, and they never would, because truth be told, they collaborate with them. What we say is different. So about that time, you see George W. Bush come into office, and what do you know? We went from Bill Clinton, who was hugging George W. Bush's daddy, to George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. Well, who in the world was pushing apartheid, full hard body? Dick Cheney when he was a representative So the real white supremacists started coming back to the forefront and saying, yeah, those subtle tones and code words and schmoozing up to niggas ain't working anymore. We gonna have to use something more direct. We gonna have to be more to the point. That's when you start seeing that turn. Now we need to go bomb some countries. Then you see the rise of Eric Prince. Now you're getting into militant white supremacy. Eric Prince, who has made no bones about it, that he is a Christian fundamentalist. He doesn't see Blackwater/Z/Academy as a security company or as simply a Christian-based organization. He sees them as the modern day incarnation of the Crusades. That we are to have the Bible in one hand and a rifle in the other to conquer these lands for white Christianity. He's made no bones that that's what Blackwater and Z and Academy has always been about. And that's just one of many. So then you see Sarah Palin come up. I'm connecting the dots for you all. You see Sarah Palin coming up next to John McCain, who was against Martin Luther King's birthday as a holiday before he was for it. Truth be told, didn't really matter which one or the other, though it did show how you felt about one thing there. Okay, here comes Sarah Palin. So she can be the Fox News hard right person that McCain couldn't be anymore. Next thing you know, here they come. Obama gets elected. And even though we know whose side he was really on, what they were like was, yeah, but you know what? Hey, it's just done got too damn black in here. We can't hang. We can't hold it. We can't hold it. It's just the optics of this are too damn much. The optics are too much to take. We can't hold it. So here comes Obama in the office, who's actually executing everything they wanted under a black exterior, including displacing black people. Which is why by the time you get to his second term in office, even the Republicans are fine with him. By the time you get to his second term in office, as you all remember, there's no more people standing up talking about you lie. All of a sudden, everybody's fine with him. By the time you get there, everybody's okay with him. And lo and be damn hold, just when you thought, when the news media, remember the news media was telling black folk that the Obamas and the Obama White House had removed the Clinton power structure. Remember that? MSNBC, CNN, ABC. I remember it. I know most of you do. Remember they said that Obama and them were the end of the Clintons running the Democratic Party, that Obama had brought in his people, and now the Clintons don't run it anymore. This is the Obama Democratic Party, remember? And then comes 2016. And 2016, who in the hell does Barack Obama come marching out? But none other than Hillary Clinton, and I'll be damned, Bill and Hillary is back again. And what was the first thing that they did? Well, you know, don't worry about that. It's 3 strikes. Not a big issue. Obama's got our back here, but things had changed. Since Obama's first turn in office, you now had a national conversation that was being conducted by the black grassroots for the black grassroots, and questions that the civil rights generation considered to be verboten, forbidden, we were asking at full volume. And we were questioning Obama's legitimacy. And then we started saying, and Hillary Clinton, by the way, yeah, we were there when your husband was in office. We got friends and family members doing lifetime bids because of you and him.
Yes, sir.
All of a sudden, they didn't want to own 3 strikes anymore. It was him and Harm. Wasn't going to be no talk to a couple of black clergy, and you going to smooth this over because we had run the black clergy up off the block. Now you're having a conversation led by the new black media. She ran to the Breakfast Club, and Charlamagne and friends tried to run interference, but it didn't work. She found herself between a rock and a big black hard place. So next thing you know, she's gone, Trump's in, and all those threats about it be the end of the world. We said, you know what? We'll take that risk. We'll take that risk, but we're not supporting you, and you're not going to scare us or bully us into supporting you. Now, when right-wingers see a black agenda being executed from the grassroots, everybody takes notice, the Democrats and the Republicans. So the Republicans looked at what we were doing, and here's the problem. They were saying, yeah, y'all ain't really cool on them Democrats, and yeah, you're pushing back against them, but you're not auditioning to be our coons either. So what you're talking about is you don't want to change your position in white supremacy. You want to overthrow it. You don't want to replace leftist white supremacy with right-wing white supremacy. You want there to be no white supremacy. Well, we can't have that. Next thing you know, change the school books, change the school districts, change the lines of contact. The police, we need to refund the police here. Look here, prison complex can't get no bigger. This right here, gentrification, full-blown speed. Next thing you know, here they come. Here they come. Because they realized that we weren't trying to get with them either. So then you get to 2020. By the time you get to 2020, whole new ball game. Kamala Harris is trying to get her feet up under her, but you are up against a competent media operative class. We never worked for one of the major corporations, but we're more articulate, more powerful, more thorough, and more listened to. And then a little video on YouTube from a guy calls himself the Black Authority said the reason why black people do not trust Kamala Harris, and for 3 weeks that was the #1 video on YouTube when you typed in her name, when you typed in Kamala Harris black vote. I caught her at the very beginning. That was the #1 video that came up when you looked for her name. #1. Next thing you know, Kamala Harris's numbers go into free fall. Everybody's asking a bunch of questions she don't want to talk about. All of a sudden, they're questioning them black credentials. All of a sudden, they're saying, ain't you Asian?
Yes, sir.
All of a sudden, wearing Chuck Taylors and Lily Adams, and all these white women who were supposed to be telling her how to talk to black folk because she's a, quote, black woman who doesn't know how to talk to black people. All of a sudden, they couldn't help her. Next thing you know, if you're wondering if it was an accident or if they were paying attention, y'all were there because you remember I'm catching hell on you on Twitter. Bakari sellers, Monique Presley, and a bunch of other folks, they came at me. They came at me by name on Twitter. I'm like, I thought I was invisible. I thought I was anonymous. I thought y'all didn't know who I was. They like, nigga, quit playing. You've been telling folk for 15 years we knew who you were. Yeah, we know who you are. Yeah, she can't come at you, but we can. We know who you are. Shut up. Next thing you know, I can't get a passport for 8 months. I'll say that. Joe Biden gets elected. Wow. Kamala Harris slithers her way into office. Next thing y'all know, Jason Black can't get a passport for 8 months. I'll say that.
Yes, sir.
For any of you who work at the State Department, by the way, if anybody's wondering, I'll throw that piece of news out there to y'all. I mentioned that before, but I'll say it here tonight. I couldn't get my passport renewed for 8 months. They made me submit my information not once, but 2 times. They sent me back a letter, and I can show you the damn letter that they sent me that told me that the documents I sent, my birth certificate and driver's license and all that wasn't good enough. They literally said that I needed to send in more documentation, that simply my birth certificate and driver's license were not enough. So they sent me a list of other quote unquote corroborating information. They said, you can submit a voter registration card. You can submit a business license. You can also submit medical records, and you can submit a high school yearbook photo.
Yes, sir.
Now, for those of you who know, that's FBI. If you want to go to work for the FBI when they do the background check, that's what they look for. What school? We want to confirm that you went to this school. We want to confirm who you are. Right back down to where you went to school at. We talking about deep security information. I'm not telling you all what somebody else told me. I'm telling you what I lived.
Yes, sir.
For the folks talking about they ain't seen this before, I've got the letter. I've got the letter that said that here's the list of alternative documents that you can send us. Yes, it said a photo from your high school yearbook. Now that's going to be a little bit challenging because Jason Black has been preparing himself for a life of what he does now for a long time. So that's going to be a little bit challenging for anybody who tries to pull that one. But by the way, they were like, oh yeah, we got an opportunity. Let's knuckle this nigga. Let's see if we can get, because y'all have to understand, they would have to file some kind of lawsuit or some kind of investigation to be able to get that information. And it could be legal,
Yes,
then again, it could not be legal. So that goes in COINTELPRO. So it could be legal, then again, it may not be legal because you don't really have judicial grounds or legal grounds to be able to get that. But if you can get the citizen to give it up voluntarily, now if we can put you in a position and maneuver you into a position where you feel you have to give this information voluntarily, well, that's perfectly legal.
Yes, sir.
So next thing you know, they got me looking at this list of stuff. I'm like, man, look here. Let me get my lawyer on one hand. I'll turn in a couple of these documents on the other, but not this stuff they talking about. So we went round and round, and people, 8 months later, I get my birth certificate back in the mail, but they did not return my social security card.
Yes, sir.
They wanted my social security card. I sent the social security card. You know, they're supposed to return all your documents. They sent back the birth certificate. They did not return any of the other documents, including my social security card. They kept all of it. And all I was thinking to myself is, Jason, Vice President Kamala Harris sends her regards. Yeah, little nigga, you gonna make things tough on me? I'm gonna make things tough on you.
Yes, sir.
So that was the only thing I was thinking when I got my birth certificate and nothing else back. It was 8 months later. I said, yeah, Kamala Harris sends her regards. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Folks, and it sounds crazy, but then again, remember, we thought COINTELPRO was crazy until we saw the documents. Then you realize that they were monitoring the Black Panthers, who had an average age of 17 years old. They were monitoring the Black Panthers from the time they were operating out of that hardware store in Oakland, which literally means they were watching them from the very beginning. So, and I've had Black Panthers and every damn thing else on my program. You damn right they watching me. You damn right there's a folder on me, a whole shelf on me. You damn right they're at war. How many times I got to get pulled over in my cars, got to get frisked and unloaded and pulled out, everything taken out of it, tossing the whole damn. How many times that's got to happen before you realize, man, that you're being watched? They looking for an opportunity. You're being watched. Call from area code 626. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Logical Facts out of Champaign. Mr. Black, again, outstanding broadcast. I wanted to actually comment on a little bit, just a small comment on what you were just talking about. With the Clintons, you know, they actually went to court, and this is actually in court records right now. The court records, they actually said, because they bailed out the DNC because the DNC was broke after after Obama, nobody was really giving them money. So they bailed out the DNC. And what they said was, okay, we want to have control of the DNC. So they got control of the DNC purses. And then what they did is they actually went into the courts and they said, we want to be able to, oh, and I'm sorry, I forgot. Then they also had the DNC sign a contract stating that they were going to actually bail them out, but she was guaranteed going to be the nominee. And what happened is they were trying to follow it through. Donna Brazile came out with her stuff, talking about it, and then of course they went to court and said, well, you know what, we can actually choose better than the people. So that was something that was just, to me, it was kind of the downfall of the Democratic Party. And then also when you're talking about with Obama, this is the kind of going into the other stuff when you were talking about with white people and how they like to do their stuff subtle. But they like to hide. It's like, oh no, they like to be right out front with some of it, because think about it. With the gentrification, what is it? Who are the people? Well, here, I'll say it this way. NAACP, once they allowed white people who were gay, once they allowed white people in as a protected minority, it was pretty much a wrap. I've said this before, but that's really how they got in, because then they were going into the black communities and it's like, oh yeah, we're on your side. And they came in and then black people were selling them. They were actually undervaluing the homes of the black people and then saying, oh, well, it's only worth this, but we'll give you this. And black people were like, well, I've never seen that much money before. And they were selling off communities. Now,
well, the reason for being seen is because that's how you terrorize people. Some things got to be, most things you want it to be undercover, you want it to be, more subtle and more covert. But every once in a while, you need to do something that's just up front. You need to do something that's in your face and blatant, so you can let them know, yeah, we doing that. You don't want to do it all the time. You don't want to do it often, because that galvanizes people. Now they feel like they're under a constant threat, and that's what galvanizes people. If you can just get in, do your dirt, and get out, and just, prick them one time and let them know you still run it, that usually helps to terrorize them enough, because if you stick around for too long, they go from being terrorized to angry and mobilized. So you got to be careful. When you talk about them showing themselves and being more blatant about it, that serves the purpose. Being seen is how you terrorize people. Thank you very much for giving us a call. We're coming up short on time here, so I'm going to ask everybody here who's on the line to keep your comments here brief. Please do, or else I hope you keep them brief for you. Let me get caller from area code 505. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hello, Mr. Black. This is Najee Shakur calling from New Mexico, Santa Fe, New Mexico.
All right, Najee out of Santa Fe. What's on your mind?
I just want to say that part of the strategy they've been struggling to do for the past 3 years is, like you were just talking about, is trying to put us in fear. It's not working very well, but I had this guy come up to me and start an argument with me a few days ago, white Latino guy, and he tried to come off trying to call me a bitch, and I asked him one question. I was like, if I'm such a bitch, what happened in Uvalde? And that shut his mouth up real quick. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you for giving us a call. Let me get caller from area code 540. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from? Caller from 540 has been abducted. Caller from area code 916. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Good afternoon, brother. My name is Smokey, and I'm calling from Sacramento.
Okay, you're too far away from your phone. I'll give you 1 minute to get closer to your phone, and then we got to move on. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Calling from Sacramento.
Okay, Tony. Tony, your phone's kind of janky, Tony. What's on your mind?
Oh, man. Really quick, sounds like like Houston is trying to follow in Ron DeSantis' footsteps, trying to remove all the way of the FBA educational progress. That's keep it short and simple for you.
Thank you very much for giving us a call. Let me get caller from area code 929. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Good evening, Jason. My name is Daryl from Chicago.
Daryl from Chicago. What's on your mind?
Jason, excellent broadcast tonight. I have a friend there that's in Houston, good former teammate in actuality, and he was sharing just the same thing with what you just talked about with me. And he was telling me 20 years ago they were trying to do something. They've been trying to do something for the last 25 years. It just didn't start. But your broadcast is enlightening a lot of people. Last night's broadcast as well. And this is powerful right here. Understand this. The closer we get to reparations, look at all this stuff that's coming out. And yeah, they're going to keep on getting blatant as they can, because it now all of a sudden the script got pulled off of everything. Now just leave it alone right there.
No, that was another point I didn't get to cover here, but thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. As I covered last night, the closer we get to reparations, the more that becomes a serious discussion, the more we're talking about reparations across the board. Yeah, the pushback is getting heavy. The pushback is getting super heavy. Thank you to everybody who has contributed to support tonight's program on PayPal, CashApp, Super Chat, Venmo. Thank you very much for your support tonight. We appreciate your support in the New Black Media. Let me get caller from area code 908. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
My name's Omar. I'm calling from Trenton.
Omar from Trenton. What's on your mind?
I want a question. What other states do you think might enact the same policy that Mississippi is enacting with Jackson right now?
Well, they all already do in some shape, form, fashion, or manner. They all already have that ability. There's the formal way of doing it and the informal. So the informal is already in effect, but what they're doing there is any place where what you're seeing is a movement now. So in these places where they feel like what you're looking for, what you really want to look for is in places where the demographics are turning against them. And I'm talking about where black folk are concerned, not Latinos. Don't let that fool you. What they're looking for are these pockets where black people are, but that black people are sitting on something that is valuable. Now, that's why I started from the beginning. You got Houston, you're near, the beach, technically speaking, but it's an industrial hub and it's a major economic center. You can't impoverish it the way you really want to. So you got to do something. Jackson is a state, you can't pick up and move Houston somewhere else. You can't liquidate the value that is the wealth out of Houston the way you want to. It's too big, it's too large, it's got too many natural resources, there's too many oil companies, you got too much going on to liquidate that. So you're gonna have to do something about them people. You can't liquidate the value of Jackson, Mississippi the way you want to. It's the state capital. You can't move the state capital. So you can't liquidate its value the way you want to either. So you're going to have to do something about the people. So what you're looking for are areas like that. So start looking for those kind of things in places like Tallahassee. Start looking for it in places like that. Places where you got a black presence, but if you can get the politics or the economy messed up enough, now it's going to be harder in a place like Florida because Florida's just flush with cash right now. So that's going to be harder in a place like that. But what I'm saying is look for it in places like that. High black concentration in something that has value that cannot be picked up and moved, either economic value or socio-political value. You're looking for things like that. Hard assets that can't just be picked up and moved. That black population got to be dealt with. And if you're in a place, for example, gentrifying Houston, man, that's going to be 100-year slog. You're not going to be able to just gentrify Houston the way you could, these other cities. You can't do that. It's too big. It's too spread out. It's too congested. Too many folk are coming in. Hell, forget the fact that you got too many folk coming in. So you can't liquidate the people and gentrify it the way you want to. That's going to be a century-long slog. What you can do is death by 1,000 cuts, chipping at the people's psyche, messing up the history, trying to turn them into folks who look black, but they think like white supremacists. So you're going to have to do it like that. Is it the preferred mode of travel? No, you'd rather just remove them altogether. Can you guarantee its efficacy? No, you can't, but it's better than nothing. Can you be sure it's going to work out? Absolutely not, but what other choice do you have? So think of it in those terms. Think of it in the terms from the perspective of the white supremacists. Then it'll start to make more sense to you. It isn't the prettiest solution, but it can be effective. At the very least, even if you don't get rid of the black folk, you are cementing them as an underclass in their own city or in their own area. So you got them just locked and boxed in and they're cemented as an underclass. If nothing else, maybe you can get away with that. Better do it while you still got the reins of power. Caller Miracle 412, you're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Good evening, Jason. My name is Robert. I'm calling from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Jason, your broadcasts rank as the top for cycle, social, and political analysis. I have never witnessed a media so thorough in analysis in my 73 years. Brothers and sisters, we are at the point to be recipients of a final solution agenda from special interest groups. That's announcing in particular. What do? We start speaking and strategizing with each other. We must love all on code people and work with people who are not on code. Don't only just listen to the black media, but be doers now of their hard worked analysis. The relevant black media should not be taken for granted. We must internalize their guidance. Be respectful of the time we are in. Recognize how you are being targeted. Put down fluff, cigarettes, drugs, alcohol, eyelashes, earrings, all that stuff that's not benefiting us in no way. Be wary of how the powers that shouldn't be are attempting to keep black adults in a permanent adolescence, to try and keep them from taking command of their destiny.
I agree with you. Thank you very much for Robert giving us a call here tonight. Good thing you make. Somebody in the chat room mentioned New Orleans. You know, right now they're trying to do a recall of the mayor of New Orleans, Cantrell. While I'm no friend of LaToya Cantrell, and I've never been a friend of LaToya Cantrell, I will say one thing. When you take a look at the recall effort against her, that recall effort falls strictly upon racial lines. There was a story out of New Orleans from one of the television stations down there, and they had some black stenographer professor down there talking about, well, it ain't no big deal, it's falling on racial lines. But, by the way, down there in New Orleans, that recall effort on LaToya Cantrell, by the way, that's falling along racial lines. When you take a look at the people who signed the recall petitions, when you take a look at where they went looking for voters to register for the recall against her, that's pretty much strictly in the white parts of the city. That's pretty much from the white parts of the city. I did not say she's a good mayor. I did not say she needs to be there, but I'd be remiss if I couldn't help but notice. By the way, I couldn't help but notice your recall effort is falling upon white lines. I wonder who they think should be the mayor of New Orleans if you can get rid of Mayor Cantrell. I wonder who they have in mind. Caller America 540, you're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from? Caller from 540 has been abducted. Caller from area code 937, you're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Yeah, this is Calvin in Jacksonville.
Calvin in Jacksonville, what's on your mind?
Yeah, a lot of times when white people talking that and all that corporate talk, they assume you don't know what they're talking about, and that's highly offensive.
I couldn't help but agree with you. Thank you very much for giving us a call. Let me get caller America 847. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Yes, this is Christy Brown, calling from the Chicago area. Jason, I like what you're doing. Keep up doing what you're doing. I believe that we just need to do exactly what Dr. Claude Anderson has been talking about in his books for years. And I believe that we need to, pull our kids out of these schools for starters, especially when what's going on down there in Texas is going on. I took my kids out of school back in 2018 when I started to see that things were changing. They were trying to force, LGBT stuff on young children. I'm talking about children as young as 3 and 4, which they shouldn't even be, introduced to any of that type of stuff. It's too early. So since taking my kids out of school, I can teach them the values that I want them to learn. And I think that a lot of our people need to do that. I know everybody can't homeschool their children, but when it comes down to stuff like what's going down there in Texas, where they're trying to take out of, Black history, education and things of that nature. I think that is something that, we need to consider, homeschooling. And the reason why all this stuff is going on, I'm a proponent. I'm a real stickler and believer that it's because of prophecy. This is why all these banks are failing. And I hate to say it like this, but it's true. The Caucasian people are getting scared because Satan knows his time is short. I'm sorry I have to call them that because it's like they take over everything.
Thank you very much for giving us a call, folks. Remember, keep your comments short here now. We're coming up on time here tonight, so please keep your comments brief. Thank you very much for giving us a call, sister. Let me get called Mary Code 612. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hi, Jason. This is George from Minnesota. I just have 2 points to make. One, there is something I just thought about. Look, we have to talk about results when we come to this point. One of the things I think of is that when you have these people, blatant racists, they hide behind things like a state house, behind, sheriff. When you start putting their faces out in social media and putting their names up, let people see what evil really is, then you might see some movement in that action. People will probably, there's this tendency of them, either, they deflect, or they change the story, or they confront you. Now, we are at the point of them fighting openly. It's because they are at a desperate point of view. I mean, the racism white supremacy is desperate, and that is why you see them fighting back. The only way to devise strategies, and besides the issue of talking about homeschooling our children, not everybody can homeschool, but we can organize our communities and society, our communities, to have even people teach our children in open, halls or that type of thing, but just the history itself. That can be very helpful for our children to keep on knowing what they find themselves, where they find themselves in. Even they give them the diluted version in schools, they will have the real history from home, from our own communities. Thank you, Jason, and keep on doing the good work.
Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight, George. We appreciate that. And by the way, I did go ahead and take a look into that while he was talking about that, just so I can go ahead and show you all that, yeah, it is real down there in New Orleans. Fox 8 down there in New Orleans, by the way. Don't believe Jason Black. Here, this is what they said.
Of who signed that petition to recall Mayor. Learning more about the demographics of who signed that petition to recall Mayor LaToya Cantrell, NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune, analyzed 32,000 signatures and broke down the numbers of those who signed by race and neighborhood. Natasha Robin reports.
I'm a New Orleans resident, and I'm sick and tired of the crime.
This is our way of trying to put an end to it.
We're getting a better idea of who signed the petition to recall Mayor LaToya.
By the way, I'll remind you all of one more thing. Whenever they talk about black folk in the South, this is always, we down here, we sick and tired of these right now. But by the way, do you hear these people? Do those sound like what you all would consider to be typical people from Southern Louisiana? So for those of you who've always listened to me and been like, well, how does he talk like that and whatnot? Believe it or not, it's actually rather common. But if you have the TV cameras come on, then you get a whole bunch of folks sitting up here talking, brick house English. But by the way, yeah, down there in New Orleans, you hear them, they sound just like your Karens from the middle of Topeka, Kansas. Now, don't they? What happened to the Southern accents?
I'm a resident, and I'm sick and tired of the crime.
This is our way of trying to put an end to it.
We're getting a better idea of who signed the petition to recall Mayor LaToya Cantrell and where they live. According to NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune, an analysis of more than 32,000 signatures handed over to the paper through a court order shows a large majority of the signatures were from white voters, 76%, while 15% were from African Americans.
So in case anybody thought, Jason, you making that up, that can't be right. Fox 8 New Orleans Times-Picayune, yeah, they went over the petitions. They went over the people who applied. And by the way, yeah, this is what they found. Now, I'm not arguing that Mayor Cantrell needs to stay in office. I'm not arguing she's been good. As you all know, I am no friend of Mayor Cantrell. As you know, I am no friend of Mayor Cantrell, but I'm also not a friend of of denying mathematics. And I couldn't help but notice the math on this screen. I couldn't help but notice it. Now, you gonna tell me that that's accidental? They already had an election. They said, yeah, we don't like the result of the election. Gather all the white folks. We want to redo. Okay. Caller Miracle 767. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
It's Jerome out of Dominica. My name's Gary. Hello?
Okay, what is on your mind?
Yeah, you recently done a little broadcast about this. Is it the Ford's company where they took over this town that is 80% black?
Mason.
And they was putting some new money into it. I think it's in Tennessee.
Mason, Tennessee. You're talking about Mason, Tennessee. Yes.
Yeah, and you're right. They're doing it quite often now. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Yes, that's the whole thing about it. Mason is like Benton Harbor. You have these areas that are valuable because of their geographic location. Some corporation wants it. Somebody sees an opportunity to muscle their way in. Nobody was interested in Mason, Tennessee until Ford said they wanted to put a multi-billion-dollar plant there. All of a sudden, here comes the state of Tennessee to say, wait now. Let us be who's in charge of deciding how this is going to go. So just understand this takeover thing. I didn't get to mention Mason before, but I figured most of y'all knew about it. But yeah, understand democracy's not working for them. So for the Democrats, we'll bring in the buffer class. For the Republicans, man, just suspend the whole damn Constitution. All these constitutionalists and all these, America, democracy and freedom of choice and small government. And I've been telling you that now for a decade and a half. Yeah, these so-called small government people, what they mean by small government is don't protect black people. They want a weak government when they want to target black people. But when it doesn't serve them, if that fails, they want the government to be huge. They want the government to be huge. They want the government to be powerful. They want the government to micromanage your life. They want the government to be everywhere. You see, ordinarily they would tell you let the free market system run itself. Well, if the Houston school district is not doing things correctly, parents should be able to take their kids to another school district. That's not what they're saying. They're saying, yeah, we're taking it over. Yeah, because your school district's not failing. I bet it will be when they get done. What we've all confirmed and clarified tonight is that the school district is not failing, but it will be when they get done with it. You are staring down the barrel of the gun and you're looking into the belly of the beast. I warned you a decade ago that we were entering the most dangerous time in history for black people. Folks, we are not entering it. We are knee-deep in it now. The most sophisticated form of genocide that the world has ever known is now being entrenched upon you. Ethnic cleansing, American style. They used to be subtle about erasing you from history. Now they're making the full court press and being none too subtle about it. I want to thank everyone who has contributed to support tonight's program on PayPal, CashApp, Super Chat, Venmo. Thank you very much for your support. B1 Media is a lifesaver. Thank you very much, brother. We appreciate that. Sydney, Najee, Naima, Ryan, and everyone else who has contributed to support tonight's program. If you are new here to the Black Channel, welcome to the haven of intelligent black thought. We do this every weekend. Click that red subscribe button. Click that yellow notification bell. Join us each and every time that we're here. If you haven't been to our website, blackchannelfilms.com, you want to go there and check out our groundbreaking, best-selling documentary work, 7 a.m., Gentrified, and as I mentioned before, Race War, all available on DVD and streaming. Go to blackchannelfilms.com. That is blackchannelfilms.com. I want to thank every one of you for joining us here tonight live. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing the program. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. And until next time, my brothers and my sisters from around the world, remember, black is the future, and the future is uncompromising.